Thank you. I have a few comments before we get to public input. I wanted to give an update to the Genderqueer Book Challenge at the high school. As some of you might know, the 5-member committee has been meeting and is involved in the review process. The policy does not dictate any timetable, but I am hopeful that in the next week or so, a report will be submitted to the superintendent. Once he receives the report, he will inform the complainant of the committee's recommendation in writing. Either the complainant or the superintendent may appeal the committee's recommendation to the board. An appeal must be made in writing within 10 business days and must specify the reasons for disagreement with the committee's recommendation. The board will meet to review the complaint and the committee report and will report its decision in writing no later than the conclusion of the next regular meeting of the board. In addition to Genderqueer, we have received a citizens challenge at Wyndham Middle School for the book Nick and Charlie, a Heartstopper novella. I believe the committee is being put together to begin the process of review. I would also like to report out that a meeting for some, I don't have confirmation for all, but for some of the following books have been scheduled with the building librarians. The books are as follows. Identical, I know I'm going to get this right, Orcs, I think in crate, Flamer, Funhouse, Sold, Tricks, Perfect, Blankets, and the Freedom Writer Diary. The district has never had a book challenge until this year, and we are navigating through a process outlined in our policy IJJ, Instructional and Library Material Selection. With recent events, I will be recommending that the policy committee take another hard look at this policy and refine it to be clear about what procedures are in place for book and media selection. I think it is important to specifically outline them so that everyone, librarians, staff, parents, and community members are fully aware of the criteria and process it takes to be included in our library collections. Experience is the best teacher, as they say, and we will try to review the policy as quickly as possible to have an update to report out to the community. I will now, I know most of you know these guidelines, but for those who might be new, I'd like to review the guidelines for public comment this evening. I don't have enough hands. The microphone is right there. The board will listen carefully to all comments, but will not respond to the speaker. Each person is permitted 3 minutes in total to speak. At the 3-minute mark, the timer will go off, and the timer's right here. This is my timer woman. And your time at the podium will conclude. The audio will be turned off if the time limit is not adhered to. If you've not finished your comments, you may send your complete statement to the board. Speakers should address the board. There should be no interaction between the speaker and the audience. Any complaints or discussions of RSU 14 employees is not permitted. Complaints should follow the process outlined in policy KED, public complaints about school personnel. Conversations amongst the audience should be moved out of the auditorium during public comment. They are distracting to the board, audience members, and are not respectful to those who are speaking. I will stop the proceedings if necessary to allow people to move outside to the hallway if needed. The board welcomes you to express your concerns and suggestions related to matters of the school district. When you come before us to the podium, if you would please state your full name, first and last, and the town that you reside in when you come right up. So, thank you all for being here, and we will proceed. Who would like to speak first?
My name is Courtney Edwards, Wyndham, Maine. I'm just going to read a book that I found in your high school library as of this morning. Jerome thrust his mildewed picture of a woman with blonde hair over my book. She was naked, gagged, and tied to a chair. Straps were wound tightly around the base of her breasts, making them stick out like fleshy missiles. And her blue eyes were wide with pain and fear. She looks like you, Jerome said, except you don't have these yet. He touched the woman's estranged breasts and then my flat chest. As I reached for it, I noticed his penis was spilling from the split of his pajama pants like a rotting banana. We played like that, him and I and his dick hanging out. He averted my eyes until the TV show ended and it was time to go to bed. But it kept happening, and a few days after my 12th birthday, he tried to kiss me. That girl was 11 years old at that time. Page 112. I open my eyes in a boozy blur. I see his penis juddering from his shorts. He grabs it by the root and tells me to lick it. He says in his thick voice, pressing my head towards it, "I've heard of girls giggling about blowjobs in school, and it's something boyfriends require of you." A stare at Scott's penis, there's a pearl balanced at the tan tip, and it smells like liverwurst. Lick it like a lollipop, and he's begging me now, breathing hard. Excuse me. He was, the penis with his hands to get my attention. He was flopping it side to side. I closed my eyes and I stuck out my tongue, and it touches the side of it. "Open your mouth," Scott says, and I do. And he puts it between my lips and he grabs my hair and he pulls my head up and down in emotion. A moment later, he groans and something slimy spurts into my mouth. It tastes like pool water. I spit the slime onto my parents' white bed sheet. My summary of concerns here is pretty straightforward. It's black and white. This book is the 14th book that I have found in just the past 24 hours in your high school that involves not only incest, rape, molestation, and suicide, but also bestiality. Yes, that is in fact right. I found a book in your high school where a group of minor children are having sex with their household cat. I'll read it to you guys at the next meeting when I attend. The book that I read prior is called Jesus' Land. It is a memoir for adults. It is rated 4 out of 5, and it states that it is not for minors. At the end of the warning on the back of this book.
Thank you very much, Ms. Edwards.
My name is April O'Shea. I'm from Wyndham. I will be restricting my comments to the book Genderqueer and other high school age books. I believe this book is necessary and should be available. Like any adult, I read the book in question, the entire book. That's what you do when you don't have enough information on a subject, rather than parroting sound bites from news entertainment outlets. If you're a cisgender person, this book was not written for you. Gender is not a leftist social agenda, and it is more than a woke issue. For LGBTQ youth, it is their biological reality. If you read the book, it explains that on page 201. These young people need as much support and information as they try to navigate a life that is already difficult enough without adults trying to legislate them out of existence. The Constitution guarantees all of us equal protection under the law. Every day, the LGBTQ community gets a little less of that protection. The slope starts out gradual, a banned book here, a don't say gay there, and then we drop off a cliff. Let's ban drag performances and gender studies, and then we'll bottom out at the point where you have to pack up your family and move to another state because they made caring for your gender kid a crime. Here in the United States, it's a true story. My family is going through this. So we need to hold the line. We need to do better, Wyndham. This is not Tennessee or Florida, nor is it 1930s Germany. We need to do better.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kate Turpin. I'm a Wyndham resident and a WHS scholarship sponsor. Today, I'd like to speak about intent and how it doesn't mitigate from impact. Last year, I worked in an elementary school in Lewiston, and I overheard a staff member talking to a young child, probably 2nd, 3rd grade, about their sisters. This staff member said, "Well, aren't you gonna make the best husband one day?" insinuating they would marry a woman. This could have been a super cute comment, pretty harmless, but to a kid questioning if they like boys or girls or both or neither, that has a greatly different impact. So does this public conversation about banning books highlighting alternative experiences of people's sexualities or genders. I sat here 2 weeks ago and my community was called sick and a cause for the damnation of our children's souls. The intent for one to be protective has a devastating impact on another when it sounds this way. Targeting LGBTQ books has an impact. Comments made about educators being groomers has an impact. You can have good intent, but you must consider potential impacts. By taking 1 or 10 books out of our school libraries, you are impacting generations of children, both straight and queer. I implore you to explore all potential impacts of your decision, regardless of your intent. And I hope everyone here does the same, because while I know the intent of many, not all, but many in this room is to be protective, 2 weeks ago, I know a lot of us are trying to be protective. I just wonder how many of us were negatively impacted by the hateful words and opinions of my fellow community members. So as you listen to all these commentaries and as you make your decisions, just consider all potential impacts, some that might take time to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Salutations. My name is July Trombley. I am from North Wyndham. I'm coming to the school board meeting as a transgender girl of RSU 14 School, Wyndham Middle School. My parents have recently attended the first 2 school board meetings, and I'm appalled and infuriated. Firstly, the censorship of library material. In my experience as a WMS student, I can walk into the middle school library and find books containing sex scenes. Such sex scenes are heterosexual, yet they're not being brought up to this board to be banned. Whilst the novels with even lightly sexually explicit content that is homosexual or involves characters who are LGBTQ have to be repeatedly brought to attention to be banned. Some don't even contain sexually explicit content whatsoever, just acknowledge the existence of queer people. I am seeing this happening and tell that not only in Wyndham, but nationwide that this is targeted towards us, and it makes me feel heavily infuriated. I would like to turn my attention to my experience and how this affects me. LGBTQ people are a very targeted and sensitive minority, specifically those on the transgender spectrum. Nationwide statistics show that nearly 2/3 of transgender youth have seriously considered or attempted to commit suicide or harm themselves. I walk into my school and am stared at, murmured over, targeted, the butt of jokes, surrounded and asked invasive personal questions. To emphasize, I've been so harassed in my own school that I meet with the principals every week at a scheduled time just to keep it under control. I read in the news, places across the country, censoring content about us, trying to silence us, and now this came to where I live, Wyndham, and it makes me feel sick. Feel sick to wake up and go to school and be harassed. Feel sick to read the news how much you and your counterparts are being targeted. Feel sick to see how many of us suffer from mental health crises. Feel sick to have your parents come home from a school board meeting and find out that people attending, after hearing how much LGBTQ plus youth are suffering from suicide and self-harm, and suggest that maybe we should just kill ourselves. It feels sickening to hear that grown adults in our own town of residence believe that my life has no worth, and maybe I should just take it away. I've struggled with suicide and self-harm since I was 11 years old, and a grown adult is willing to say out loud that maybe I should just kill myself. It's sick, it's disgraceful and horrifying. We're children. I'm a 13-year-old kid who likes walks, science, and jazz and vintage technology. I'm not a sexual predator. Heck, I'm scared to use a public bathroom because of cisgender people harassing or ostracizing me. I would never do something sexually deviant because I hate the sexual reproductive organs I was born with. I'm one of the demographics most likely to be a victim of sexual violence. It feels sick to live my life and be alienated and silenced and harassed, disrespected, to have to fight to be treated as a human being. Think about how this affects kids like me, who are already so sensitive and targeted, to be silenced and treated anonymously like criminals. Don't let other people silence our stories, our existence, our lines of hope, and our inspirations.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Trombley, mother of that child, Wyndham resident, parent, and staff member. I need to address some of the comments I heard at the last meeting. You are right, this is about the children. We do need to protect children, but not from books, not from pictures, and not from teachers. We need to protect them from guilt over their natural curiosity, from the idea that sex is bad and teens are wrong or immoral to think about it, or heck, even read a book where the characters think about it or do it. We need to protect the kids who feel different and are questioning who they are from the bullies who tell them every day they are disgusting, unwelcome, and should disappear. We need to protect our children's mental health from the open hatred and ignorance now on display. If you are saying, I love everyone and support queer people, but then you sit with and cheer for the folks who are lying about the groomers, the predators, how the pride flag was a hate symbol, how trans people expose themselves in bathrooms, your actions are speaking louder than your words, and you are on the side of hate. The ones who need safe spaces and protection are not the cisgender heterosexual ones. When you sign your child up for summer camp, I want you to think, do you have to sign a non-disclosure form regarding the location of that camp because it's unsafe for the public to know where your trans child will be in the summer? Do you spend weeknights on alert to suicidal ideation because your kid heard that adults in their hometown wish they would kill themselves at a public meeting? Do you wonder if you need to install more home security systems because a parent who has been in this room threatened to kill a family member? I ask you to consider this. Who are you cheering with? Who and what are we protecting our children from? And finally, to address the books being challenged, no one is making the kids check out and read these books except for some of the parents in this room demanding their removal. Personally, I think kids in middle and high school will be fine reading these books if they wanted to. To me, there is nothing wrong about teenage characters grappling with sexual identities or grappling with past abuse. In fact, I believe access to queer identity stories can be life-saving for some children. Some people here don't agree with me, and that's okay. We can agree to parent differently, but what we are fighting for is different. Some people are here are fighting to remove books that they don't like. I am fighting for respect, inclusion, and my child's life.
Thank you.
Hi, members of the board. My name is Crystal Ash Cuthbert. I live here in Wyndham. I wanted to share 2 thoughts with you this evening. At last week's board meeting, several members of our community wondered how they could possibly object to a particular book if they didn't know what books would be part of the curriculum and/or available to their child. In policy IBM, teaching about controversial issues, it clearly states that students or their parents or legal guardians who object to particular topics based on sincerely held religious, moral, or philosophical beliefs may request an accommodation in accordance with Board Policy INB. This policy would allow individuals who object to particular books or topics to request those accommodations for their own child. An accommodation in many schools looks like reading a different book, not being allowed to check out particular materials from the school library. It is not necessary to remove a child from public education to keep them away from topics that a parent doesn't believe is appropriate. They merely need to make their own personal wishes known to the school their child attends. For those parents who object, feel free to use the options available to you through the school board policies. Trying to ban books for every student of Wyndham, including my child, isn't acceptable to me. Many students need those books with controversial topics. They build understanding and they build empathy. Showing differences in how people think, who they love, and what they believe is the foundation to accepting others for who they truly are. So board members, please continue to follow your established policies because they are fair and just and allow every individual parent to make the choice for their child. I want my daughter to have the option to read books that develop her thinking, her kindness toward others, and compassion for those who are different than her. The second thought I wanted to share was that the wonderful individuals who choose to dedicate their lives to educating our children are not groomers. They are not trying to indoctrinate, exploit, or turn any child against their parent. They have chosen a thankless profession that exists solely for the purpose of creating intelligent children that feel accepted for exactly who they are. Educator bashing in this town has got to stop. The goal of public education is to prepare our community's children for the world that someday they will become leaders of. And the world that they will enter is full of diverse, unique individuals and cultures that they need a more thorough understanding of. Our schools and the people who work in them should reflect the world that they will be entering.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board and community. My name is Ashlyn Cuthbert, and I am here as an 8th grader who has attended Wyndham schools my entire life. The books that have been cited by members of our community help people for so many reasons. These books are resources for students who are confused, curious, feeling alone, and/or struggling with their identity. These fictional books cover nonfiction topics that are happening every day. Our students are possibly going through these things all of the time, and these books help them feel like they're not alone, because they're not. I remember when I was going through one of the worst times of my life. One of the things that got me out was a book that taught me that I wasn't alone, that others were going through the same thing that I was. That book helped me learn how to defend myself and help others. Not only do these books help students in similar situations, but it helps other people who aren't in that specific minority to understand what it's like to be in other people's shoes. In our school system, we are often taught compassion, and these books encourage this. When reading another person's story, we start to understand and consider what other people may be going through. Parents and students completely and understandably have the right to stop reading or to stop their child from reading a book that they don't feel comfortable with. But you cannot prevent other people who need that book from reading it. I beg of the board that they not deny a child's right to something that might change their life for the better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colin Damon, Wyndham. I believe the reason why everyone is here is because they care about their children's educations and their well-being. I live in a community where people's values are in the right place. However, this Books in the Library issue is an example of yet another divide in the fabric of our society along partisan lines. I believe this is about more than what books are allowed in the library. This is just a reason to bash and damage public education as a whole. School is supposed to be a place of community where families of all different backgrounds in the community can come together, and that is being lost. Some of the rhetoric I've been hearing about teachers labeling them as groomers, for instance, is dangerous and irresponsible. I personally choose to trust our teachers rather than view them with suspicion. People become teachers because they're passionate about helping students learn and grow, not because of some malevolent agenda. Come on, who would become a teacher for the salary? We cannot continue to generalize the other side. We cannot continue to dehumanize those that do not agree with our political beliefs. We cannot continue to assume the worst in each other. I believe in this country we're on a slippery slope to real violence, and the us versus them must stop. Finally, the porn is on the phones and the internet, not in the books.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ewan O'Shea, and I'm from here in Wyndham. So, as we all know, there has been a movement to ban books that display topics, some books, pertaining to homosexuality and other same-sex relationships. I'll be talking specifically about the book featured in our high school library, Gender Queer. I fully object to the banning of this book. All of us students at the high school have to deal with a decision you guys make. And normally I'd be perfectly okay with this since it happens all the time, but this is the first time in my life that I feel like one of these decisions is going to be negative in every possible way, and I actually have the words to speak about it, or against it, in this case. I didn't know this book existed at all until the possible banning made me want to read it so I can be aware of what I was talking about and supporting. And now I read it, man, am I glad I did. I say this because I feel that putting this book in our high school, where students are at a time where they're going to start questioning who they like, how they feel, and what they are, would be nothing short of beneficial to them. If a young teen is going through this and they're too scared to tell their parents, because if I didn't have such a loving and accepting mother, I would be too, and they read this book, they can not only understand what they are feeling, but also that they aren't alone. What I feel is happening here is that people who aren't in high school anymore are wanting this banned because they don't like it, even though it doesn't affect them. Even if they're scared that their child reading genderqueer will make them gay, it doesn't matter because that's not how being gay works. If their kid starts mimicking behaviors that they think is gay, it's not some life or relationship ruining event, and there's probably another reason to explain their behavior other than the book said so. Some of your kids might be LGBTQ themselves. Even if they were, they might try to avoid telling you at all costs because they're terrified it'll make you hate them or it'll ruin your relationship with them in some other way. Now take this hypothetical kid and put him in a scenario where this book does happen to be banned. How would that make them feel? How would they perceive that action? Worst case scenario, that'll probably make them feel like they can't come out to anybody at all, with some of their friends being the only exception. They'll have to act like somebody they aren't just to avoid the fear of facing judgment or rejection. A bit of an over-exaggeration, maybe, but that's exactly how I would feel. And the fact that it could make someone feel that way should be all the explanation I need to give. Before I go, I would like to conclude with one more overall statement. Think about your kids. No, don't just project your own thoughts onto us and pretend you know how we feel. It'll be hard, probably impossible for some people, and that's okay, because we don't know how you feel either. Rely on communication. Consider how we feel about this, and then form your opinion based on that. Think about what banning this book can mean for us down the line. It didn't help me much right now, but books like these can help other kids a lot, especially if there are more stories like these out there in the future. Whatever you
Thank
do,
you very
just
much.
show them just so us.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening, board and Wyndham community members. My name is Louis Ouellette from Wyndham. And the first thing I want to lead off with is to remind our community members that Maine Statute Title 5, Part 12, Chapter 337A, Protection from Harassment, subsection 4651, defines harassment as 3 or more acts of intimidation, and such the infringement of another person's First Amendment right. The district also has a policy, JICK-E1, under which line A-3 prohibits the harassment and bullying of others, so much so that it impacts the orderly operations of schools. Having seen some comments on the Facebook pages, I would encourage those who seek to silence others to stop, because they are in direct violation of the law. That's the first thing. Second thing is that after doing a bit of research on the Association of American Librarians Association, I came across books like Lord of the Rings, Call of the Wild, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Great Gatsby, Catcher in the Rye, Grapes of Wrath, To Kill a Mockingbird, Color Purple, Lord of the Flies. I can go on, I have a list here, and I can share it with all of you. These are books that have, over the past 30 years, been proposed to be banned on a variety of issues. Another such is Blood and Chocolate, 2002, was on the chopping block for sexual content. Having read that book, it's less than Twilight. And, oh wait, Twilight's on this list too, as is Goosebumps. Oh, wait, Harry Potter, Captain Underpants as well. So when people speak out saying that, oh, a book needs to be banned, I disagree with it. Check what you're saying, what you're projecting yourself as a community member to these young minds. We are adults. We stand by that motto right there. Success for all. There is no asterisk, there is no apostrophe. It is all, period. Regardless of orientation, identity, race.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is NJ Boatman. I am a transgender and gay student at WHS. As I know you are aware, recently there has been a heated controversy around the book Genderqueer by Mayo Kababi in our school, specifically around its pornographic content. Many parents at this meeting are trying to ban the book in our schools, hence taking away an essential piece of literature and content that many students can see themselves reflected in, which to a trans or gay teen is critical to mental and social health. The claims against this book are unfounded and out of proportion, and removing the book from the library would only perpetuate the waves of hatred towards and the erasure of the already vulnerable portion of our student body at WHS. To address the concern of pornographic material, I would like to make 2 points. The first point being that the actual definition of pornography is printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs, intended to stimulate erotic rather than aesthetic or emotional feelings. I put emphasis on the last part of the definition because intention is very important, and the intention of the explicit scenes in Genderqueer is not to stimulate erotic feelings, but merely to depict real life and the real life experience of LGBTQIA+ teens. My second point is, no child is going to seek a book out if they want to find pornography, especially not Genderqueer. Genderqueer is an educational memoir about LGBTQIA+ topics, not smut or pornography. Another argument that has been made is keeping the book in schools is a violation of parental rights. However, this is an illogical argument. While it is the right of a parent to decide whether or not their child reads a book or is exposed to different topics, banning this book would be a violation of parental rights for parents who want their children to have access to this book. It is your right to tell your child not to read a book. It is not your right to make it so that other children won't be able to either. This book is not being taught as part of the curriculum. It is not being pushed by teachers. It is merely an option in the library for students who might be interested. Speaking from my own experiences and the shared experiences of my peers, having representation in books and media is extremely important. I read the book Genderqueer in late 2020, which was during a time when I was discovering a lot about myself and trying to figure out who I was. Reading books like Genderqueer and Nick and Charlie and seeing LGBTQIA+ representation in TV and media is essential to me being able to accept myself, and without them I would probably still be living in self-hatred for something that cannot be controlled or changed. Representation of all cultures and experiences needs to be kept in schools for the good of all students. Banning this book would be taking away an important piece of educational literature, and that is never okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Scott McDonald, I'm from Wyndham. It kind of bothers me that if you're against this, it is pornography, even if it's cartoon form. There's stories kind of saying rape's okay, not rape, but yeah, raping your incest is okay. There's way too much there for majority, I don't know. If I gave these books to your kid, that would be giving your kid pornography. And for some reason, if it's educational, then that's okay. LD 1, 2, 3 would change that, and it would make it that the school would have to stand by the same laws that the rest of us do. I'm not against whatever you want to do. I'm good with that. I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone. That's not what we're talking about here. Just because I don't want little kids seeing graphic pornography, because that is what it is. That's what it would be if I gave it to some kid. They don't need to see it. It's not going to help them. It's not going to help what, they don't know how to do it? Then maybe they're not whatever the book's about if they don't know how to do that. These things, you don't need an illustration of how to perform these acts. It's really not a place, the schools, I can't believe I have to say this, but the school, it's not a place for these books. If they want these books, perhaps they should get them somewhere else. But we got them out. We had an 11-year-old reading a book that they couldn't play on the news because it was illegal. That's because they know kids are watching the news. It's a pretty easy thing to say. These books, we're not banning any books. Nobody's called to ban any books. We called to get them out of the library, the school library. I don't understand how anybody would, how can you sit there and put some parent down that's concerned about what their kids are reading and say, oh, you're anti this and anti that? I haven't seen anybody get up here and say that. They're anti-pornography in the school. That's what it is. Thank you very much.
Kristen Day Wyndham. Anyone standing up speaking against any of us or our efforts, have you actually looked at the content we're finding? It's not against anybody. It's not against LGBTQ. If you look at it, it is not that. So I hope that everybody can listen to what I'm going to say, not in the context of being against anybody. Here is some of the content for minors, 13 to 17, some 11 and 12-year-olds in the library. Degrading profanity, incest, rape, bestiality, suicide, sodomy, murder, porn culture, group masturbation, kinks and sexual fantasies, use of sex toys, casual sex acts, suggestion of porn sites and books, pedophilia. Not all books will be removed, but all books with this content flagged should be read in full, and pro and con reviews considered, age appropriateness in reviews to ensure it's overall appropriate before it's added to a school, just in school. If your 5-year-old wants to be Bob the Builder, you don't leave him in a workshop with a jigsaw and a power drill, right? The dangers to an immature mind of carrying too heavy a burden is not seen like a bleeding cut might be, but we can guess: depression, anxiety, demoralization, and hopelessness. Not saying some people can't benefit from it. I feel a parent in a family or other trusted adults not in school can help kids find those sources. It's time to be discerning with our school sources in the library. As you revisit policy IJJ, I ask you to give attention to File Code BBA, Board of Directors' Powers and Duties. You're responsible for the development of policy as guides administrative action and for employing the superintendent to implement its policies. Policy IJJ is not achieving this requirement, as made apparent by the removal this week of the book Let's Talk About It by the high school librarian. This board is obliged to do your job to make Chris do his job in addressing administrative procedures to improve book selection. I'd like to request that you exhaust all policy avenues to address this issue. File Code BF, policy development by the Board of Directors. The board will welcome suggestions for ongoing policy development. File Code BE, Board of Directors meeting, workshop meetings. The board at its discretion may schedule additional workshops and other meetings to discuss a particular subject or proposal or to gather input from staff, community, or other groups. 3, File Code BDF, Board Advisory Committees. You could join community members of all points of view together to encourage discourse on all points of view to present back to the board. This would be a show of good faith, Kate, as you revisit IJJ in assessing this genuine problem that until recently was unknown to us. We understand policies written by the subcommittee, but we do have suggestions we expect to be considered according to policy in the context of this current citizen concern. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Helen May from Wyndham. I'm going to scrap my remarks just to point out that it's very interesting that with all of the talk of codes and definitions and pornography, that none of this was an issue before the school board up until the wave of transgender panic that's been being organized around the nation started making its way through the school boards in this state as well. not a whole lot of concern up until then. My trans child happened to speak here a couple of weeks ago, and for all the talk of this not being an attack against folks who are transgender or LGBTQIA, when talking about the fact that trans children have a higher rate of suicide without proper supports and ways that they can find ways to identify their own stories. Someone said, when talking about suicide, why don't you? And in these folks' Facebook groups, on The Wire, on all of the talk that they've been doing on Fox News and whatnot, they are creating a rhetoric of hate. They're talking about people being groomers. They're saying that, you know, folks are perversions. There's a whole lot of horrible talk. So I think that it's a fig leaf to say that this is not just about gender. And I would like to read a short passage, if I may, from Genderqueer. As I pondered a pronoun change, I began to think of gender less as a scale and more of a landscape. Some people are born in the mountains, while others are born by the sea. Some people are happy to live in the place they were born, while others must make a journey to reach the climate in which they can flourish and grow. Between the oceans and the mountains is a wild forest. That is where I want to make my home. My child, the other kids who've gotten up to speak here, the folks who support them, they want them to be able to grow and live out their lives peacefully, where they can have their lives be as much a part of the mainstream and just live. They just want to live. And that doesn't seem like too much to ask, as well as the fact that in a plural society, we should be able to have books in our libraries with which we do not agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gracie Levitt, and my pronouns are she, her. I live in Raymond, the traditional land of the Wabanaki Confederacy. I am the parent of a child set to enter the RSU in the next school year, and I appreciate that many before me have come to speak about their intentions to protect her and all the district's children, even if we're split about how to accomplish that. I also appreciate that people are sharing their differing perspectives, as our democracy is healthiest in its plurality. Something else I believe can support the health of a democracy, and indeed any society, is for people to continue to work toward deeper and more nuanced understandings of themselves, each other, and the world's possibilities. Ensuring our schools make space for books that reflect the world in which we live, that speak to our nation's history with candor, and that seek to counter the hate and harm our young people too often face today, can support, in addition to their own senses of self, safety, and possibility, a vital democracy fueled by an awareness of the realities of our world, by contemplation, compassion, and empathy. Indeed, not knowing myself has sometimes been an obstacle to my own participation in democratic processes like this one. And I am grateful that while much further work must be done, books that represent the voices and experiences of LGBTQ+ youth, BIPOC youth, people with disabilities, survivors, and people of all historically marginalized communities may yet be more and more accessible to those who choose to read and think about them. Some folks who might otherwise defend such works more broadly have criticized specific books such as Genderqueer as examples of pornography. But imagery and words alone do not constitute porn, which specifically intends titillation and often leverages power. Meanwhile, books that intend to be instruments of representation and reflection often seek to correct powers too long imbalanced. I am here to help hold the space that has already been made for these works of literature and to help it grow. Experiences like those reflected in the books Genderqueer have always existed, but these books have not always been published and made available to the public. It's taken far too long to achieve the amount of representation we currently have, and while many of us seek more, we're certainly not going back, because no one is free until we all are.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Mike Trombley. I have a statement to read, but first I just want to say one thing. If my 5-year-old wants to be Bob the Builder, it's true. I shouldn't put them in a workshop. but I should give them a book because books are safe. At the previous 2 school board meetings, I've listened as several parents used standardized test scores as a reason to ban inclusive books from the library. This accusation would be laughable if it were not such a colossal waste of time. We're barely out of a 3-year, once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic in which millions died. Everyone's life has been upended in some way. Perhaps that has more to do with the drop in test scores than a few books in the library that aren't even part of the school curriculum. I'm going to say that again. They're not part of the school curriculum. The testing trends are not unique to RSU 14, and so it makes zero sense to place any blame on the hardworking teachers of this community. What also makes zero sense is the accusation that our schools aren't focusing enough on the subjects of reading, writing, and math. My kids bring home math and language arts work almost every day. Those topics dominate our parent-teacher conferences. They're all over their progress reports. So I have total confidence in my kids' teachers, and I thank them for their tireless work. Listen, we've all heard the corny phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Teachers work 8, 10, 12-hour days. They do their best to meet each student where they are, but they can't force students to listen to them. They can't snap their fingers and make students learn. The student-teacher relationship is founded on trust. Students trust that their teachers are there to help them. But when a parent spreads rumors and lies about their teachers, kids hear it, and that trust is broken. This isn't an exaggeration. It's not hypothetical. It's happening in our towns. If you participate in that kind of fear-mongering, if you spread those lies, you have no reason to complain about test scores. Try something else. Try treating all kids with kindness, regardless of how they look, regardless of what pronouns they use, regardless of what books they have in their backpack. Try trusting teachers. Try supporting them. Try asking them what you can do to help. Try letting them do their jobs without constant interference and harassment. Try something else.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tommy McDonald. I'm from Wyndham. None of these parents are saying to ban the books. They're saying they want them out of the libraries in school, library schools, school libraries, whatever. You can have them at the public libraries. You can go to a bookstore and buy them. They don't want kids reading the books because, well, do you want your kids watching someone have intercourse? No, you don't. It's wrong. It shouldn't be in the schools, and you should take it out.
Anyone else?
Adam Zajac, I'm a Wyndham resident. I've addressed the school board several times right here, but tonight,
Sir,
I want to address the public, and I want to look at everybody when I just...
CJ, I'm turning off the mic. This is comment to the board. Tell the board what you want.
You can start that 3 minutes.
We'll give you your time.
Yeah. So I would like to address everybody in here, all the parents and the kids here. This has nothing to do with anybody being anti-LGBTQ. Nothing at all. This has to do with having sexually explicit materials that are not appropriate for children and minors. A lot of these books are 18 and up. So, again, this is not anti-LGBTQ. People keep mentioning genderqueer, but just so you know, we have like 14 books that we have been fighting and putting placement of the IJJ, whatever it is, and we've met with librarians, the superintendents, everybody. Now, I really want to know who is okay with having bestiality in our schools, all right?
I'm gonna turn off the
If
mic.
you
Okay. You ready? Are you ready? It is on.
Thank you. God, what is the deal? Why is it not okay for me to look at my community that is standing here and concerned?
Are you ready to comment?
I'm not commenting, I'm speaking. This is public speak right now. Okay.
We're willing to listen.
Okay. So why is it okay for you guys to have literature in the school where a girl is taking her cat's tail and putting it in her pussy? That is not okay, and I am not afraid to say it right now because it's all adults in here, okay? You're teaching kids or allowing kids to learn how to use butt plugs. You're allowing kids to learn how to suck cock. And they're in the library. You know what? Cut it out. Cut it out. Stop. Now, I have a real problem with what you guys are doing and what the people in this audience are saying, because this is illegal. This is pornography in our kids' school. 100 yards away from this school is the public library. You know what? If you want your kids to have it and you can't afford to put these books in your child's lap at home, then go to the public library. It's free, and everybody is allowed to go there. Now, another thing I want to say is I went to Sherman's with my son because you know what we decided to do? We decided to buy books that are appropriate for the kids in this school. And I got one for the high school, one for the middle school, and one for the elementary school. Now, I had a really hard time finding them at Sherman's because it was all, man, I gotta say, it was a lot of rainbow flags in there. Now, I want books that are teaching my kids to succeed. I want you guys to actually try and teach these kids math, English, science, how to be successful. You know what? We don't need any flags other than that one right there in our school. American flag. We don't need BLM flags or signs. We don't need LGBTQ. We need
Time is up, sir.
Academics. That is what needs to be taught to our children.
Thank you.
And I reviewed them, and they are age appropriate.
My name's, is the mic on? Oh, thank you. My name's Noelle Teague, and I have 2 kids in the Windham Public Schools, and I am also a Windham resident. When I was young, there were plenty of kids who were dealing with sexual assault. There were plenty of kids who were transgender, who were queer, who were gay, who had difficult pasts, who were dealing with violence in their home. They did not have those books. We all knew them because I may not have grown up in Windham, but it happens in every community. Books are a way for them to have their stories told, for them to have validity, to understand what's happening to them, to understand if something is right or wrong. It might be difficult, especially as adults, to read these stories and to see kids in them because they're difficult topics. And it can be reactionary. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean they don't need resources. And it doesn't mean that they should be shut out. Any book in the library that any parent here doesn't want their child to read can now, they can go through the proper channels and have their kid exempt. It is their choice, but for those kids who need those books in order to grow up to be functional adults because they are dealing with those issues, it is life-saving, and it is essential.
Thank you.
My name's Nicole Varney, and I'm a Wyndham resident. I didn't come here with a speech tonight. I have a sick kiddo at home, and I would much rather be at home with him, taking care of him, but as a parent, I have to protect him when he's sick as well as when he is healthy. Again, I said it last time, people need to stop with the feelings and start with the logic. What it comes down to is this stuff, not just specific to the LGBT community. I have nothing against that. What I have against is this stuff in school, just like Adam has said many times, every topic that is in those books that is not okay for kids to read should not be in school, period. I feel like we are treating children like adults and adults like children, and we have it completely backwards. That's all I have to say. I'm going to continue coming. I'm going to continue fighting. I wish Ms. Butler was here tonight, because 2 weeks ago when I was at the school board meeting, she went and spoke to a parent that was sitting in front of me, introduced herself, said thank you very much for the back and forth with emails, except for I have been emailing every member of the school board numerous times, and I have gotten not one single response. Not one single response. I have issued my concerns, I have asked numerous questions numerous times, and not one single email. So hearing her go up to that parent and thanking him for the emails and the topics and stuff really, really bothered me. You guys are supposed to be for everybody and every parent, and not just for the ones that are going with the agenda that you agree with. All right? I'll see you again next week.
Hi, my name is Kelly Ruby, and I have 3 children who attend Wyndham schools, 8th grade, 4th grade, and entering kindergarten in the fall. I am first and foremost a mother, and I will always advocate for my children. I am also a teacher, and I want to specifically express my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to all of the teachers we have worked with over the past 8 years. They have truly made a difference in our kids' lives, and I know firsthand how hard it can be working on the front line. The past couple of years have proven to be very difficult for my now 13-year-old daughter, and she has given me permission to read 2 pieces she has written to illustrate how hard it is already to be a teenager who is not only experiencing changing hormones, questioning identity, and wondering how she fits in, but also how having issues of sexualization being shoved in her face day in and day out can be equally as detrimental to her mental health. The first one's called Caving In. I feel as though I don't fit in, and my stomach's starting to churn and spin. My mama tells me not to worry about what people think about me. I tried my hardest, but I caved in, and now everyone's looking at me. He, him, he, no, I'm a she. But they all still looking at me. And now I feel as though I have to change my personality. Maybe if I change the way I look, I might get a guy, and maybe then I might not feel like something's not quite right inside. I told my friend I wanted to kill myself, but maybe, just maybe, I just might need some help. The ADHD doesn't help because it means I'm not like everyone else. My teacher will send me out of the class because I'm acting up and stirring the mass. Bullying sucks, bullying sucks. You ain't know what I've been through. I punched a kid on the bus in her face. It was a bloody bust. People don't realize that a couple days before, her and her friends ganged up on me and stole all my stuff. A kid in my class will yell, "Shut up, trans," but I'll just stare at the wall and not bother to do my work at all. And the second piece is called Lonely. I'm lonely. Sometimes I wonder if I'm even visible. No one can see me. They don't know how I feel. I'm lonely. I'm hurt. Does anyone know my worth? I'm lonely. Walking to the bathroom, found the scissors, 1, 2, 3. Falling, drip, drip, drip. Pretend I didn't do anything. I'm lonely. Cover up my wound. I can't afford to be figured out. I'm lonely. I need help. I can't sleep. I don't want to eat. I'm lonely. I'm hurt. I don't have any worth. So, having just read this, you may be wondering what this young lady is really like. Let me tell you, she is intelligent, she gets great grades, she's athletic, she's sensitive, she's loving. She has always loved school, but now she says she does not want to be in Wyndham schools any longer. She wants out, and I am asking the administration and the school board to make that right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Justin Wynot from Wyndham. I'm back before the board tonight to just point out the failures. Your continued bad policies, your reckless indecisiveness, and your complete disregard of the well-being of RSU 14's youth is a complete disgrace to the community. Bad policies of this board have aided to the crumbling of the mental health of students of RSU 14. Last month, a poll was released showing that 1 in 3 teenage girls had contemplated or attempted suicide. This is truly heartbreaking. Yet in light of this, you continue to subject the children of RSU 14 to pornographic and sexualized content that is degrading the mental health and well-being of this community's children. The community has had enough. It's time for this board to do the right thing. Remove this disgusting, detrimental material from our schools before the blood on your hands can never be washed clean.
My name is Doris Meehan. I'm from Wyndham. My support of the parents who are concerned about the hypersexualization and desensitization of violence being perpetrated on their children has made me even more aware of education shearing away from academics and into cultural indoctrination. It has also caused curiosity about why eliminating some materials is okay and not for others. Parents who are concerned must jump through hoops to remove books that contain raw, graphic, sometimes violent, and often pornographic descriptions and depictions of sexual activity. Books that they rightfully consider inappropriate for young minds. Yet, within the last 10 years, books by Dr. Seuss have disappeared from the earth because someone somewhere imagined that his caricatures were insensitive depictions of racial or ethnic cultures. Seriously? I never once pictured a Dr. Seuss character as anything bordering on human. In 2016, another book, A Birthday Cake for George Washington, was pulled by Scholastic publishers because it was deemed to gloss over the horrors of slavery. In neither of these instances, in neither of these instances are many similar, was there a concern that Nazism was creeping into society. Also, in none of these incidents were children being hypersexualized and exposed to photos and vivid descriptions of sex and violence that were likely to damage their innocent mind and hearts. Nor were they likely to traumatize some student who may have already been sexually abused. These parents have nothing in mind but the protection and very best interest of all children. I think the school system should try to cooperate and work with parents. It appears instead of that, the system is following the legal advice that has been given to silently listen and then ignore. I hope and pray that that's a misconception, but with one recent exception, it is how it appears.
Good evening, board. Sherry Clark from Raymond. I wanted to tag on to that, and I wrote out something here. I probably won't reference it too much. Innocence. It's a word that we hear, but that children are supposed to live. They're supposed to live in the childlike innocence that we all, I hope that most of us here, did have. I'm not necessarily talking to the 18-year-olds here. You're an adult. But for our children, my grandchildren, we have 9 grandchildren. 4 of them are currently residing and attending RSU 14. I want to give my grandchildren the same thing that our children got and that I got and that they got: innocence. You can't buy it. You can't take it back after it's been stolen. And it's being stolen from our children. Please don't let that happen.
Hi, Jennifer White from A Joyful Noise Christian Daycare and Learning Center. I just want to say that both of my kids attended RSU 14, and I can't speak highly enough about some of the teachers that we had, to be honest with you. We had some fantastic teachers. And I honestly say that because I have these conversations with my kids, especially my daughter, and there are some great teachers. Now, have they always been perfect? No, there's actually been some mistakes with books. And a rated R movie where at the end there was a gun stuck in the mouth and pulled the trigger. We had no idea this was being shown. She was in 5th grade. Okay? So how did we handle it? We went to the teachers, we went to the principal. We had a good relationship. We talked through it. This has escalated to a point far beyond that. And my daughter actually got books at the library recommended by the librarian that she brought home because she was such a gifted, talented reader. These books were far beyond anything that she should have been given. Okay? She brought them home, my husband read them, and he was appalled. And had a discussion with the librarian. The librarian said, I am so sorry, I shouldn't have given those books. That book actually isn't supposed to be in the school, it's supposed to be in the high school. I'm sorry, I made a mistake, both times. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. What I'm saying is mistakes happen. It doesn't matter how involved you are as a parent. This isn't about bad parenting. This isn't about not opting out your child. We did all those things. If they're still present in the library, there are loopholes. What I think needs to happen is there needs to be a better policy to address this. In the school board, I'm asking to adopt a policy that we can get rid of pornography in our schools and sexually explicit materials that don't need to be in our schools. We have the public library right here. Right here. They could walk over, take out a book, no problem. Mom and dad can buy it for them on Amazon if they wish. We don't need the stuff in our schools. And then think of the community partnerships. You have a lot of community partnerships like myself, where you have kids that could come to my school, that could be at a middle school, that could bring stuff in the backpack, that could bring stuff home to their siblings. These are things that are not appropriate. This is not just about schools, and it certainly is not about the LGBTQ community at all. It really frustrates me because I'll tell you right now, I mean, I have people in my family and friends groups from all colors, whatever, all spectrums, okay? And it frustrates me that you come up here and I'm hearing you. My heart breaks for some of the things I heard here tonight. This is not about that. This is about sexually inappropriate materials in our schools.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Stephen Napolitano from Wyndham, and it sounds like you have to define what illegal pornography is and what's acceptable. It's a tough position for you to be in, and as a youth coach of 17 years, if I brought any of that material with me at any of my practices or games, I'd be arrested by those gentlemen back there. So a month ago, 11th grader, Knox, read that book, went viral for a reason. It's very, very disturbing for a young child to be reading that. We're going to talk policy for a moment. Kate Bricks, you and I have been going back and forth a little on email, talking about policy as far as the IJJ with expediting material. And you said that the board follows policy, no exceptions. So my question is, do you always follow policies, or just when it's convenient? And I'm going to bring back about a year or so ago when Jenny Butler, a board member, violated the multiple code of ethic guidelines, which she posted on social media. These are quoting her. I find this very interesting, as she shared a right-winged extremist post that says the right-wing extremists are coming to the school board meetings and to get ready. She also shared a critical race theory post, and also about white privilege. Was anything done as far as following the policies, or was I told that there was no teeth? On March 3rd, a year ago, former board member Scott McLean and Dr. Robin Frost and the public voiced their concerns about the removal process of explicit material. Chris Howell responded to the public and to the board that Chris himself would make exceptions for expediting dangerous situations. Though it was not written in the IJJ, Chris said he would expedite just before the board voted for the revision. Okay, and I asked you about it, and you said the minute said one thing, but I said the video said another thing. So if someone's not telling the truth, is it Chris about intervening, or is it you about your response saying no one can expedite? Anybody can go to that video on the RSU 14 website. I know the librarian had pulled a book recently, and I praise her for doing that. Now, are these books dangerous? Are they dangerous enough? See, as you've been hearing, and I'll mention some again, how to have sex with a cat, molestation, incest, rape, theft, pornography, hypersexualizing minors, vulgarity, intense violence, underage drinking, drug use, and anti-religion. Now, all of you up there are either parents, grandparents, neighbors here in the Wyndham-Raymond area. You have students here or you know somebody that does. Mr. Howell does not. The lawyers do not have anybody in this. You guys are stakeholders just like all of us. We're asking you to take a stand and talk about that pornography is not acceptable in our library.
Good evening, Ken Clark. Again, last time I was up, I said, look, think of the Michael Jordan analogy. It's got to be the shoes. It's got to be the porn. Definitely heard a lady read a part out of Genderqueer. Very nice passage that was read. The issue is the porn that goes on beyond it. It is harmful. You need to talk to people that have more education than anyone I found in the school, and they will tell you the same thing. It's illegal for a reason. The CDC even said it was harmful. It's about the porn, folks. That's what we're upset about. Again, we all have the right to be who we are, feel who we are. And that one person that attacked, I did hear that comment too, and I was horrified by it. And I apologize on behalf of that person for how he might have offended you. Where my anger lies, and a lot of our anger lies, is with the school and the board and the people that run it. We find out about this stuff because we hear it from our kids. We hear there's the sickest stuff that Courtney read. How is that beneficial? And honestly, all you parents that have are trans kids, how does that help them? It's harmful. Please, listen to us on that. We hear you, you gotta hear us. That's all we're talking about is the porn. Those things are disgusting. Sticking a cat's tail doesn't help anybody. I'm pissed. I'm pissed because we have to find out about it that way. So excuse me being angry, but you're not going by what you should do. It's your responsibility to let the parents know. Then we do some digging. We find out that boys can go in the girls' bathroom. I don't agree with that, okay? My daughter's going to see a dick for the first time in a stall because someone flashes it to her. She's 11 years old. Not appropriate. And I'll be honest with you folks, I don't think it's appropriate either for a male to go in the female bathroom because you identify a certain way one day. I'm just being honest with you. There's a neutral bathroom, you can go in there. More than welcome to. It's just people aren't prepared for this stuff. And I talked to a teacher, one of the principals, that said, how come you haven't let parents know that that the kids can go in the bathroom? He says, well, we didn't want to make a big deal about it. Really? They send us a note, there's gonna be a PJ movie, and let us know about that, but they decide, nah, we're not gonna let the parents know, or send an email out that someone in the 6th grade could have another opposite sex in the bathroom. Grow up, people. Seriously, it's bullshit. And that's why we're pissed. Our anger is not at you folks, it's here, and it's the porn. I just don't understand. I'm probably gonna run out of time, but I just try to run through my head in the hierarchy of needs where the power lies. And I had to come up with a maritime analogy, and I probably won't get through it, because my notes are everywhere, but if you think way back in time when the Lloyds of London were founded, okay, it was an insurance company to ensure the safety of the vessel going across the sea. So picture RSU 14 as the vessel. Everyone in this room, okay, are the mutual policy holders in that. The cargo is our kids, okay? So now, all of a sudden, and you folks on the board are in charge of the crew. The crew is made up of Chris Howe, who's the captain, and the other people on the boat, all right? So say they're about ready to set... Oh, man.
Thank you.
I am Tom Boatman. I am from Wyndham. I just was thinking about the one thing. A couple years back, Nicole Maines up in Orono sued the town of Orono, the school system, because she wasn't provided with a bathroom at all, being a transgender youth. And she won that lawsuit, which is, to my understanding, why this bathroom policy is instated in Wyndham. So that's the Maine Supreme Court's decision, not yours, but I really appreciate that you guys are following what the Maine Supreme Court determined. So thank you very much, and thank you for sitting up there and letting us all have our say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Beth Hall from Wyndham. I hope nothing happens in the RSU 14 bathrooms, because that's going to be the publicity that the school's going to get. Yeah. And sorry, that's how I feel. So that's a little heckling. If there's a lot of students in this system that are having transgender difficulties and trying to figure out who they are, there's a lot of heterosexual people that are students that are having the same problems with their day-to-day hormones and growing, and I think we need to get rid of these books and have more counselors on board that are there for the kids daily, that they don't have to wait in line for help, that they're there for immediate emergency consultations, and support the kids in that matter. Get rid of the books and start having conversations. Kids don't need to learn this stuff from a book. They need support. They need to learn how to talk to somebody about their problems. And a book is still all by themselves. Reading this book, going by somebody else's opinion about how their journey was. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, have you spoken before?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Anyways, my name's Scott. Hold on, I haven't started yet. My name's Scott McDonald. I was curious, the 4 books that were brought up to you tonight, is there a possibility you could give me the titles of them? You, please. All right, so one of them is a sports book, which is good for us. Oh, sorry. One of them's a sports book. It's about soccer, and it looks like from the front page at least. That's good for our schools, I'd say. The Kite Runner seemed like a pretty good book to me. Not part of the school system anymore. The Wild Robot seems like a normal school book that you could read for probably middle school to high school level. This last one is Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman, or Daniel Kahneman. Basically, people might get offended at what I might say. I'm not trying to be offensive. These books that were given to an 11-year-old and given to these 6th graders, these kids haven't even hit puberty yet by 11, and they don't even know what that is. And let them read sports books instead of have these little sports books assigned out on the front of the book thing, or your little signs and everything. These need to be in the schools, and I mean, if I could say something to one person, if you guys do not believe this, maybe they might be. But we need people like the guy who was here. We need him in our school board, and I mean, I accept this book because this guy is a pretty knowledgeable about everything he knows, and his son is too, which is 11. And it's pretty sad considering it's a sexual book containing graphic stuff. I mean, just accept these books into the school board and have some common sense for what everybody has to say and these concerned parents, because what you accept, these parents we're banning books, because obviously this guy wants books, and just accept what the parents have to say. And I mean, I'll be called a lot of things, I'll say my name is Scott McDonald and I'm straight. Gender queer is offensive to me because it's against my actual religion, technically, because you're not supposed to have sexual intercourse until you're married. And I mean, I hope everybody here has a great night, and please accept these parents that are concerned for their kids.
Hello, my name is Ra Huff, and I am a resident of Raymond, and I have 3 children in the Raymond schools. I have heard it said recently that books are either mirrors or windows. Books that are windows show the reader something that is different than their immediate surrounding and personal experiences. It helps them to learn about the world outside their sphere, and it helps teach empathy and compassion for the people that are unlike them. In books that act as mirrors, you see people in places similar to yourself. It is important for everyone to have access to read books that are both windows and mirrors. I was personally raised in a bubble, or an echo chamber, if you will, where I was indoctrinated to truly believe the hate and the bigotry spewed in this room week after week, and to believe that that was love. It has taken me many painful years to extricate myself from that cognitive dissonance, and to actually learn that our children, my husband and I, are not merely extensions of ourselves like we were taught to believe, but individual human beings that are learning who they are. I would also like to point out that The Kite Runner, was that one of the books that you mentioned right there, was challenged many times because of its age-inappropriate material, sexually explicit content, and offensive language. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney Post-Vandenberg, Wyndham. I have 2 children in the school district. I am also a children's director at a church. And I would just like to thank the school board members and the community and the staff at Wyndham schools all through RSU 14 for the one act that happened this past week where our students here right at the high school took first place. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Rebecca Cole, Wyndham. I'd like to thank the members of the community who've demonstrated unwavering and genuine support for our staff and students. Your words and actions serve to bolster an incredibly disheartened school community, and you are so very appreciated. Thank you to my colleagues for continuing to show the compassion, commitment, and excellence that make me proud to be part of our staff. You endure untrue accusations, unwarranted harassment, and unfair criticism daily, all while caring for all of our learners. Thank you to our students, many of whom feel keenly the harm caused by the vitriol that divides our community. Every one of you deserves to come to our learning spaces and feel seen, heard, and valued, no matter your identifiers or circumstances. Every citizen has the right to express their questions, concerns, and ideas. They should be able to do so uninterrupted, without fear of mockery, retribution, or threat. There are processes and procedures to address issues formally, and policies and statutes which govern those avenues, none of which are rooted in vengeance or violence. One statement from last week, among many that were similar, stood out to me in particular. Public schools have a problem. They have to cater to every class of student. Yes, we do, because every single student has the right to a free and fair public education in a safe, supportive environment. It is idealistic and unrealistic to ignore human realities such as hunger, trauma, fear, discrimination, health, or cognitive challenges to approach reading, writing, and arithmetic as if those realities did not exist. To engage in learning, students need us to see them as people, not problems. How heartbreaking those and many other words must have been to anyone experiencing any of those truths, to feel you aren't welcome in our public schools because you don't enjoy the same privilege as your peers. Your child or your family is seen as a problem because you need extra support. I think of my colleagues whose life's work is ensuring a quality experience for the young people with whom we spend the majority of our and their days, and I share their feelings of demoralization and disappointment that elitism and exclusion have brought to our community. Hate has no place here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm a senior. I'm here today to speak for my friends who can't speak publicly without outing themselves, which is very dangerous for some of them. Firstly, I would like to recommend some other options to steer us away from this binary of keeping versus removing books. The first option is to set up a notification system that allows a notification to be sent home when a student checks out a book, so families can be informed of what their child is reading. Another option is to let families put restrictions on their student's account, preventing them their student from being allowed to check out certain books or any book that isn't needed for class. These options let parents protect their kids from books they deem as harmful without taking these books away from those who need them. I don't know how these options relate to like privacy laws and First Amendment stuff, but they're definitely worth looking into if we need to find a compromise. To continue on, I would like to point out again that this is in fact an attack on the queer community, even if it's unintentional. I know this because most of the challenge books, especially those that are causing so much commotion, are queer stories that have the same or even less mature content as books I had to read in school, like health, sex ed textbooks and many of the English books in our curriculum. Why are people talking about books that just exist and nobody has to read them and not the books I had to read for school? I have no problem with these books, but I just hope that people can be consistent. And I hope that I'm not being naive when I say I fully believe the people that say they're not here to attack the queer community, but the reality is that we are being targeted even if it's unintentional, and I encourage people to recognize that, and I will stand here and defend my community. With that established, you should also be aware that removing these books is in direct opposition to core value number 1 of the RSU 14's core beliefs, equity and inclusion. Specifically 1D, and I quote, create a community of professional and student leaders where all feel safe, valued, and achieve at high levels, end quote. Removing these books will encourage anti-LGBTQ+ bullying, causing us, the queer community, to feel more unsafe, and it will demonstrate that we are not valued by our administration, including yourselves. It is not the school's responsibility to risk violating the First Amendment and forsake their core values for families who don't trust their adolescents in a library. Students can access far more mature content on their school laptops, and we're worried about books in a library. At least the library prioritizes having material that is beneficial for students, including genderqueer, as proven by the brave testaments of my peers that we heard here today. Thank you for your time. You all have given hours upon hours of your time and your sleep to listen to our community with admirable composure and professionalism. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? I don't see anybody. I'm not sure. Sir, are you coming down to speak? No. Okay. I didn't want to miss you. Anybody else? Okay, this concludes public comment for this meeting. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then resume our agenda. If you intend to stay for the rest of the meeting, if you please have a seat. Really appreciate it. We have budget discussions coming up. Before we get to the budget. I'm going to move into item 6, which is the superintendent's report. And this evening, we have Christine Burtonay, the assistant superintendent, who will be giving us a report.
Thank you. So I want to give a shout out. I know CJ Payne is coming down now, but congratulations to CJ for leading. I believe this was your first year leading the One Acts. You may have heard this evening. The Windham High School One Act cast and crew came in first place out of 9 other schools. That was at the all-class Class A site competition. They did qualify for states, but it sounds like they're not going to states. They qualified for states, but they're not going. I'm probably stepping on Al's toes here on this, but congratulations, that's awesome. Al could explain why what they have to do on that same day. As well, I want to highlight this Friday, March 17th, in a couple days, is a staff and service day for all professional staff in the district. So no students will be coming to school on that day. I hope you enjoy your long weekend. Next Thursday, March 23rd, from 5:30 to 6:30 at Raymond Elementary School, they're going to be hosting another Title I Family Literacy Night. The event will have a March Madness theme. Not sure what that's about, but all families are welcome to attend this special event.
You're all set? Perfect. We're going to move into board roundtable. This is an opportunity for the board to speak about any subject they would like.
Good evening. So I did prepare a statement to read because I wanted to be sure that I didn't miss anything and didn't misspeak. With each day that passes, we have become aware of more inappropriate materials in our libraries. I think we can all agree that at least some of the materials presented to us are absolutely not acceptable in our schools. In my opinion, it does not matter if children have access to inappropriate materials outside of school. That is for their parents, guardians to make decisions on. We absolutely can and should control what they have access to at school. I have grave concern for where this is all going and how unprepared the board, administration, and staff is for what is being revealed. Saying, "but we didn't know," is not a valid excuse. It is our jobs to know what the children in RSU 14 have access to. We do not. We have failed. We have failed our children. Frankly, I am horrified that my daughter has had access to these materials and that I had no idea. I trusted staff, administration, and the board to protect my child and assist with the social and cultural education she has received growing up. My fault in all of this is that I assumed that staff, administration, and the board agreed with my social and cultural viewpoints. I am formally requesting that we discuss what actions we're going to take as a board to become the leader in this situation rather than hide behind policy IJJ, shrug our shoulders and say, "oh well." The CDC comes out every year with a youth risk behavior surveillance. It is a study of teens in our country. The latest data, which was recently published, is from the fall of 2021. We must follow the science. The study showed extremely high rates of depression, suicidal thoughts, and drug abuse and violence experienced by teen girls and LGBTQ youth. Studies have shown that kids as young as elementary age are being exposed to pornography. Estimated 15% exposed before 10 years old. Of teens who watch porn on a regular basis, up to 83% have watched porn that show rape and other sexual violence. More than 1 in 10 teen girls said that they've been forced to have sex, which is 27% increase since 2019. LGBTQ plus students were more likely than their peers to have been forced to have sex. Nearly 1 in 5 teen girls experienced sexual violence in the last year, an increase of 20% since 2017. LGBTQ plus students were more likely than their peers to experience sexual violence. Of LGBTQ plus students, 70% had persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. half contemplated suicide, and 1 in 4 attempted suicide. The RSU 14 mission statement includes establishing a safe, supportive, and inclusive community. Core belief number 1, create teaching and learning conditions that serve to build safe spaces for all. Core belief number 2, create educational model that meets the needs of the whole child. Core belief number 3, provide a broad range of learning opportunities with a higher degree of relevance to individual learners. Core belief number 4, development of staff expertise and high levels of student success. Core belief number 5, it takes a community of collaborative partners to foster civic-minded students. Core belief number 6, design of an educational system that leads to productive, resilient, innovative, and empathetic citizens. I am sure at no point during the collaboration to create the mission statement and core beliefs did any parent think that that included the schools providing materials in the libraries to teach children how to have sexual pleasure with each other. Teaching children how to have sex is not the same as sex education to protect them from the dangers of sexual activity. Children are not mature enough to handle the emotional toll sexual activity can take on a person. Sexualization of children is a crime and should not be conducted or supported in schools. Support, respect, and affirmation of LGBTQIA+ children should not include pornography for children. And just for the record, I have close friends and family that are LGBTQIA+. Policy IJJ was reviewed and approved by the board in March 22. I supported it at that time. I thought the review steps were appropriate for challenges to books such as Huckleberry Finn, Catcher in the Rye, or Grapes of Wrath, all books that have been used in school curriculum in libraries for many, many years. But today, people look at them through a different lens, and some people feel they're inappropriate. However, never in my wildest imaginings would the appeal process be needed for pornographic content brought into our libraries by school staff. We need to revise IJJ so that pornographic materials in our libraries are immediately removed upon challenge. Going a step further, no pornographic materials of any kind should be in our schools, period. It does not make a difference. It does not make a difference if children can access similar materials on the internet. The school system should not be providing it. Policy JLF, Child Abuse Reporting, Prevention, and Education, Section 1A, defines child abuse as a threat to child's health or welfare by physical or mental or emotional injury or impairment, sexual abuse or exploitation, deprivation of essential needs, or lack of protection from these by a person responsible for the child. Section 1B. Person responsible for the child means a person who with responsibility for a child's health or welfare, whether in the child's home or another home, or a facility which, as part of its function, provides for care of the child. Section 2 discusses school employees' duty to report child abuse. Section 3 states all building administrators and the superintendent are designated agents to make child abuse and neglect reports. Section 4 discusses steps to take if the suspected abuser is an employee. Section 8 discusses child abuse awareness and prevention training for school employees. This includes awareness of developmentally appropriate and inappropriate sexual behaviors in children, identify indicators of sexual abuse, including physical and psychological indicators on a spectrum. If a child cannot access the information on a school computer, they should not be able to access it in the school library. If for no other reason, the recent CDC Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance results show an increase in sexual violence in teens, especially LGBTQ. Quite a coincidence. Follow the science. I will close with, I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it. Attributed to Potter Stewart, Associate Justice in the Supreme Court, 1958 to 1981. Thank you.
Thank you, Shar. Tough act to follow. I didn't have a speech prepared, but I did want to say that one of the most important and one of the best opportunities I have in this role in the school board is being able to meet with the students at the high school once a month and to see how how much they achieve, and they talk about their successes, and they talk about what they're doing in different clubs. And they are very busy academically, with sports, quiz team, social justice. They do it all. They really do. Talented kids here. And I don't feel they need to be burdened with the sexualization of books that are, within the school system. To echo what Shar said, we understand that those things are available on the internet or on their phones, but as a parent, I can ensure what my child is looking at on those things, and I can put blocks in place for them. And I would think the school would have a block in place for that as well, so she wouldn't be able to access it there. I am a mother. I have 2 small children, one in the primary school, and she's had 2 phenomenal teachers, kindergarten and first grade, who I can't speak highly enough of. They're phenomenal, and they do a great job, and I just want to keep supporting the staff who we're entrusting our children to. And one thing is just to keep remember to stay involved and keep up with your kids, ask questions, and stay on the front line with them, so these things aren't as much of a surprise in the future. Thank you.
Super short. Okay, just again, thank everyone for the public comment tonight. It's really helpful to hear, not only each of you have come multiple times, but just sort of hearing a different take. I think it's fair to say each time you come, we're hearing something different, and that's important. I also just want to say for Ms. Varney, it is really troubling for us. Where is she? Did she leave? Yeah, just that if she feels she's not been responded to, that's important. We have, as a team, been keeping tabs on, did we get a response, and we feel like we're doing a good job with that. We recognize that sometimes the answers aren't as clear or what we want to hear, but I think it's important that everyone here knows that that's not okay with us. We need to be responding. And our policy dictates that if we receive an email individually as a board member, that it is to be forwarded either to the entire board or to the chair so that they can respond back to the entire team. That's the process, so that everyone knows every board member receives an individual communication, that everyone has the same information at the same time. If it's a confidentiality issue, we're not involved in that. If you're sending a message to the superintendent, that individual's not going to respond to the entire board, even if it's something that you've mentioned related to the board. So if you're intending to get a response that we see, you need to send it to all of us or to the chair. Okay, individually we'll get it, but we're trying to work really hard to make sure that there's a really clear process there. And I believe Kate's done a terrific job with that. And if we've missed something, please let us know, because that's important. As we walk through the budget process this month, it's tough to have 2 big things going on at the same time. But the budget's a really important document for both communities, Raymond and Windham. Our directors and all of our administrators have been working on this document for months and months. And I just want to invite the public, either through those attending tonight, the minutes, or watching the video, to go back and watch the portions of the videos that are related to the budget that are important to you. And so as we follow our process in the coming weeks, March 1st, the superintendent outlined a budget timeline, talking about these weeks in March 1st, 8th, 15th, and the 22nd for budget presentations. We have the opportunity to hear from some more administrators tonight. Public comment on the budget, board deliberation March 29th, April 5th, board deliberation on the budget, and April 13th, the board will hopefully vote on the budget, and then May 17th, public budget meeting, and June 6th, the budget referendum. This is a really important process, and just want to invite the communities to participate in that as you can. The budget's available on our website. It's a giant Excel spreadsheet. It's the same one we're looking at, but if you've got questions, please ask what those questions are. I have a question about X. This department, this, whatever it is, we'll find it in the budget and have a discussion with you, or the right team, or the finance team. So just want to make that invitation really clear. We don't miss the budget while there are these other important issues going on concurrently. You know, I'm really eager to continue this work around the process. It's, Kate made comments at the beginning of the meeting. Your words were that we're going to work on a prescriptive process, that you sent a message to us very clearly as a team. And I think it's also important to know that sometimes when you're not hearing things out in response, I've mentioned this multiple times, it feels so awkward. Individual emails that we're not responding to you directly, but we're discussing this as a team. Administration's involved, the board is discussing these issues, and Kate describes looking to work on a prescriptive process for material selection going forward. How can the policy be changed or revised based on, you know, our first practical use of this policy as a district? And I think that's reasonable. Mr. Napolitano pointed out that it has been a month since we received the first public comment and challenge. It's not a ton of time. It feels like a long time. Talking about getting a committee together, getting these people in the same room, going through the process, meeting multiple times to go through the process. It's not a lot of time. It's been mentioned multiple times that this process has been taking 4 months. I don't see it that way. It's really just been 4 weeks. And the last thing I want to say is we've received some really insightful, terrific feedback in written format, in suggested policies, some thoughtful information that is having sat on the policy team just since last June. I look forward to really working on this, you know, looking back at it, looking at how we can alter it to work through a revision. And I do also think that in engaging as a team will be important in that process, not just with policy. So that's all I had for tonight.
Thank you.
Just a brief question. We reviewed IJJ as a board with our attorney like a month ago, and at the time you had asked in public session of our attorney if he recommended any changes to the policy. He said no. I'm just wondering, when you look at it again as a policy committee, if you're intending to have the attorneys review it again.
Typically, our process, is we meet as a team. We review other policies, MSMA, Drummond and Woodson policies. We actually look at surrounding districts' policies. We don't want to recreate a wheel if we can pick and choose great pieces from other policies. For me, the learning is until you go through a challenge, which we have never done before as a district, it looks great on paper. It looks great on paper. It says there's a procedure. This is how it's going to work. And we break it down into the different categories and what the challenge should be and the challenge form. And the learning for me is, and I said it in my opening remarks, there's nothing like experience. And hearing public comment from a wide variety of opinions, hearing from board members about the process and their concerns. My eyes are open, quite frankly, to the fact that although the policy says a procedure will be put in place, that we really need to define that. And we really, for all of our sakes, for the board, for the community, for the staff, so that it is exceedingly clear if a book is being considered, what rigor does it go through before it reaches our stacks in the library? And we have to have a great understanding of the process. My hope is that when we meet as a policy committee, we're going to take a deep dive. We've listened, we've heard some comments that really resonate as far as what would be helpful for parents, helpful for students, to clearly define, if there is a concern, what the process is. So I welcome meeting with the policy committee. I know Mr. Howe will be involved, Ms. Burtonay will be involved. We'll seek a variety of comments from the community. We have them, and I'm taking notes. So I'm hopeful that we can move quickly on reviewing this. Let me just say, our work doesn't move as fast as we would like. I mean, case in point, the challenge. It seems like, as Jody mentioned, that, for some of us, it seems like it's been months and months and months, and it really hasn't, but it feels like it because we are all anxious for an outcome. And I'm right there with you. I think the whole board is very anxious to see what the result is from the committee. Again, we have absolutely no input with the committee. We don't say, giddy up, get on with it. Their work is their work, and considering that the makeup of the committee is a principal and staff members and a community member, those folks work during the day and cannot meet during the day, typically. I don't even know when they meet, but I'm assuming that teachers have classes, principals have an enormous job during the day, managing students and staff. So it seems like, although it's 4 weeks, you've got 5 people that you have to coordinate to get together to have the very important discussion. So I hear you. It's not as fast as we would like. We're going to move forward as quickly as we possibly can to take a good look at this policy again. I'll be the first to say, despite having Drummond and Woodsum come and sign off, that now that we are knee-deep in challenges, that we need to take another look. So I'm in full agreement with that, and we will proceed.
So can I just ask a quick clarifier, if I can, Kate? There's inventory in the library, as Shar pointed out, that shouldn't be there, that our district agrees and has taken some action around that. Can you comment on what work we can expect on looking at what's currently there? We have our challenges, we understand where those are going, and how, can you talk a little bit about that?
I can speak to what I think. I have not had the input we have not yet met with our librarians and really have not corralled all the folks. But first of all, we have had turnover with our librarians, and some of our current librarians are new this year. That being said, as far as the current inventory, in my mind, and I'm just one of 9, I don't have, as much power as y'all think I do. I think there might be a need to take time, and I know it's going to take a lot of time, to go through our collections in the libraries and get a baseline of what we believe is appropriate. I understand, and this would be an enormous undertaking, but I think it might be a worthy venture. So this has not been discussed with the librarians. It's just coming out of my mouth. So we'll see if we can look at inventory and maybe reevaluate what we have. I don't have anything to say besides that, so I think we're going to move into committee reports. And I don't think there's anything for finance. I don't believe there's anything for facilities. Policy, we've talked briefly. We haven't met as a committee. Curriculum, I don't think. Technology, nothing. Adult ed, nope. Vocational, no. So you know what? Al is the star for the evening.
I was just going to say that the school build team will meet on the 23rd. So just want to get that in the minutes in case someone was tracking that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo the congratulations everybody else had. I was on the One Act team. I was the lighting designer and lighting board operator. We did win first place at regionals. We qualified for states. Unfortunately, our cast and crew is filled with incredibly busy people, and we were all doing things during states. So the next people to go would be the runners-up, which was Thornton Academy, but they have their musical on that weekend. So fourth place is going to attend states, Marshwood. They had an amazing play, so that's really cool. I'm excited for them. I also want to take the time to thank all the students. They're not here anymore, but the students who came here tonight and spoke, they were incredibly brave. The things they said were absolutely amazing. We're really all here for the students, and to hear their voices and stories is really incredible, because we can always think about and assume what the students are thinking, what they're going to be doing in libraries, what they're doing on the day-to-day, but actually hearing from the voices of the students is really awesome. So I'm also glad that we're doing all of these school board breakfasts at the high school, and it's great to see students coming to the school board meetings and hearing what they have to say. That's all I got.
Well done. We're going to move into our important discussions about our budget. And our first presentation is from Ryan Karen, who is the principal at the high school. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all the hard work that you guys do to support the staff and students in the district. So my budget, the big news in my budget is that I'm asking for an Eagle Block teacher. We currently have an Eagle Block teacher that is through grant funding. So that's an RTI position. It's a position where we are providing students with real-time support on standards that they might be a little bit behind on. In the past, the Student Support Center portion of the library would be staffed by teachers that had time. Instead of taking a study hall, they would work in the Student Support Center, but it was a hit and miss depending on how the master schedule worked out. This year with the Eagle Block teacher, we have a certified teacher, all 8 periods available to students. We have worked with over 100 students at the semester. We've earned, students have earned over 60 credits back from things that they might have missed going 1 year or 2 years back, and now we've transitioned into a situation where a teacher can refer a student for a couple weeks. So we just took an assessment, and they didn't do as well in this assessment as we would have liked in this standard. So, and that's going to impact learning moving forward. So we can assign the student to the Eagle Block for a couple of weeks. They work on that standard. So they get pulled from a study hall into Eagle Block. Because we have a full-time teacher, we can do that within their schedule. We don't have to change their schedule or limit their access to any of their other classes. And then they have, they get the instruction, and then they're ready to go back into the space. Most of our contemporary schools have this type of position. Most schools have at least one teacher, in a lot of cases 2 or ed techs. I initially brought a proposal for a teacher and an ed tech to the A team, and then when we started looking at priorities and things, I took the ed tech out. The ed tech would give us the ability to have. What we're running into is some students that are finding great success in the Eagle Block, and then they want to stay. They'd prefer to have that supported situation instead of going back to an unsupported study hall, and Ed Tech would allow for that type of day-to-day support, not specifically in standards that the teacher's providing. So we're going to try to cover that portion of the Eagle Block with teachers, as we had in the past, as they fit into teacher schedules. We have additional teachers there. We have several math teachers that are assigned to Eagle Block because our Eagle Block teacher is certified in English, but we'll continue to work that way. But I'm looking for, it would be a full-time position. It would be continuing on the full-time position that we have, working effectively this year at the high school, but within the budget. So that's my biggest ask. My second ask is for a half of a Spanish teacher, and that's based on student need. I run our master schedule based on student interest. I'm trying to, I've talked several times to this group, or some on this group, about trying to increase the amount of classes that students are taking. We made it an expectation, not a policy, because that's not what I do, but made it an expectation that students would take 6 classes out of 8, and for the most part they did this year. It wasn't a big fight, but if we're going to do those things, we have to offer classes that students are interested in taking. So this year we have 2 Spanish teachers teaching extra courses and a French teacher teaching a Spanish course, and we foresee that there will be more Spanish sign-ups moving forward. So if we're going to continue to teach both introductory level Spanish at a higher level than we have in the past, and continue to offer the high in-person high-level Spanish 4s and even maybe higher, we need an additional Spanish position. Those are my 2 asks in the budget. My operating budget, the student enrollment's going to go up a little bit, but I'm very comfortable with the operating budget that we had, so I don't have any big increases within the operating budget. Any other increases in my budget are based on built-ins on salaries and things like that. I did ask for about $4,000, $3,900 in stipends, so that we can compensate our robotics coach and our Quiz Bowl team coaches for the great work that they've been doing with kids. Those were clubs that were started based on student interest and did not have a stipend attached, so the advisors for those clubs have been working for the last couple of years voluntarily. So with the amount of time that they're putting in and the great success that we're having, I think it would be good to be able to compensate them a bit.
Any questions?
On your budget request form, I really enjoyed the little blurb about the extended learning opportunities. I was wondering if you could just give some specific examples of things students are doing this year.
So we have students, there's a career badge that students are doing through JMG, where they do a certain amount of hours worth of work in the workplace and preparatory work that allows them to get an award that will be notated with their transcript as they move forward. Specific students, we're a pilot year, so specific students are doing some internships. We had a student do an internship at the town hall. We had a student do an internship with the newspaper. We're looking at working with Sabre Yachts and some other places. We have several of our Voc students that are working in businesses because they've advanced beyond some of the material that they were learning in their second year of their program. So it allows us to make those connections with the community and get students into those positions. We have a new round of we just went through a new round of applications for some students to do some other cool things that once that goes through, I can share those. We're looking at hoping to use this program to do some mentoring and to build in some things that way as well. So it really allows us to do a lot of to award credits, high school credits for activities outside of the traditional classroom.
Shar, you had a question?
Mainly commentary, more commentary than question. Ryan, Phil, and Vanessa, as always, you guys are rock stars. Thank you for everything you do every day. Phoebe regularly tells me that you guys just pop up out of nowhere at the right moment whenever she thinks she needs help for something. Anyway, I just want to comment that, you know, obviously everybody's watching expenses, and that, you know, things are tight these days for a lot of folks. But one of the things that I think about is that we need to invest in our future, the future of our communities, the future of our world. The last 3 years have been very painful to the education of our children, as evidenced by the number of folks that are in Eagle Block asking for help, right? So I am supportive of increasing staff to be able to support kids to catch up on the education that they have missed for the last 3 years, so that they are better prepared when they leave high school for whatever their next adventure brings them. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm a little more curious about the impact of not getting the ed tech for the new program. Can you tell us a little bit about how you'll cover, not specifically, just a crayon version for us simpletons up here?
So we're in the process of starting to build the master schedule for next year already. So students are selecting classes and teachers are making recommendations, and a part of that is we send a survey to teachers to say what would you, in your duty block, what would you prefer to do? So some teachers would prefer to have a lunch duty, some teachers would prefer to have a freshman study hall, which is a little bit different. And one of the options is academic support. So there's a group of teachers every year that would rather work academically with a small group of students than manage a study hall or something along those lines. So I'm confident that we'll be able to provide a level of support for students using that method. But we don't build the master schedule around support. We build the master schedule around student interests. So maybe not every period where an ed tech would provide that support on an every period basis, but we'll be able to provide that support using classroom teachers that are opting into using their support blocks. So and there's instructional blocks, and then there's support blocks, and then there's preparatory blocks. Their support blocks, teachers, we're giving them an opportunity to tell us what they'd rather do, and we'll try to work it so that they get the teachers are working with staff in the capacity that they're most comfortable. So that's how we'll cover that in light of, that's how we're covering it this year, and that's how we'll continue to do it.
Okay, great, thank you. I want to commend you. One of the things that's been so apparent to me is there's a number of students that kind of, touch the board in different ways in the work that we do, and that program, 100 students and 60 credits, that's not a small number of students. That's a big, big effort, and I'll just speak for myself. I'd love to see that program fully supported with people that have the credentialing to do it, not taken away from the current model, but just if it's not this year, I'd like to see it next year coming back as a request to support that program, because I just think it's terrific what you've been able to do there, so well done.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and your team. Sitting right over there. I'll find my agenda. Next up, Craig Hames, Katahdin Program. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, school board members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for all you do. I think my colleagues are going to be happy with me tonight because this is going to be quick, I think. We don't propose any changes for the next school year. So our budget is essentially the same. We have 6 FTE. All of the staff is returning. We don't propose any new positions. Our student numbers are exactly the same. We're capped out at 22. So our budget is totally the same. I guess there's a little bit of increase that has to do with just increase in fixed expenses, salaries and things like that. But in the interest of talking a little bit, I just pulled a few points that I just wanted to discuss that kind of touch on some of the core values from the strategic plan. Something we're excited about as we're moving into the spring is our seniors programming. They have access to a 4-week paid internship program where they apply to work in an area of interest that would give them some transferable skills to move forward. We have a database of community partners and organizations that have in the past hosted Katahdin students or perhaps have not, but represent a whole slice of the economy. So kids are applying right now in our senior class to do the internship. Not all of them will do it, but probably it looks like about 90% of them will apply to do the paid internship. So they're released from school and they go out and work for 25 hours a week. And we check in with their employers daily and kind of make sure that the experience is rich and robust and the kids are learning and on the right track. So that's coming up. We're excited about that. Also, a feature of Katahdin is that we have advisory every day, 20-minute period for all of our students. So they're in groups of about 6 to 8 students and a teacher. And that advisory is a home base for kids where they are seen and heard and guided and supported and can ask questions and form bonds with a smaller group and a teacher. And then lastly, we have a really neat new mentorship program where we have students, almost all of our students have participated, and they go down and they mentor younger children in a first grade classroom. I made a mistake, I wrote second grade, it's actually a first grade classroom. And they go down for an hour a week and just support the kids in their curriculum. And they learn how to relate well with younger kids, support them, and model for them what it means to be a big kid supporting younger kids. And it seems to be a win-win, and that's been going on all year. And all of our students love it, and great feedback from the primary school. So those are just 3 elements of the program that I wanted to discuss tonight.
Exciting stuff. My question is, you're holding firm at 22
Right.
for enrollment.
Right.
And they're primarily all high school.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. We have a couple 9th graders this year. But yeah, all the high school years are represented.
Do you have a waiting list?
We do.
But you only can take 22.
That's correct. And that comes down to transportation. We only have 2 van drivers this year. In the past, we had 2 full-time and then a spare driver, but we haven't been able to hire a spare driver. So we're down to 2 van drivers. So they are straight out going all the way up to Raymond and everywhere to pick up kids door to door. It's part of our truancy prevention program. It gets kids coming to school. Our attendance has been fantastic all year, the best year. This is my 4th year as director, and this is the best year for attendance. It's dipped a little bit in March, but generally speaking, we've had fantastic attendance this year, and that's with 11 new students. So that's been very good this year.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else?
So just to tag along to the question that Kate had, I think last year I asked you about, how many kids would really benefit from your program, because I think it's extremely valuable for the future of these kids. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned that you've had to limit the program for lack of transportation. Mm-hmm. And I would assume, and I know it's bad to assume, but I would assume that kids that would find this program valuable probably come from homes that may not be the best situation. But that being said, have we looked into asking parents to transport them and we'd reimburse for that?
I have not. In many cases, there aren't parents available to do so reliably. In some cases, perhaps there would be, but that is not a model that we've explored. The other reality, transportation is, I think, the most significant limiting factor, but we also have a very small space. Mm-hmm. We only have 3 classrooms. One of the classrooms, you can have a maximum of 8 students in there. So we also have a very small physical space that we're working with. And then the last reality of alternative learning is that the kids' needs are such that there needs to be a really high student-to-teacher ratio or low student-to-teacher ratio.
Right.
And there's a tipping point with alternative learning, and I've seen it tip. Once you get up to 10 or so students per faculty member, things suffer. So I think we're kind of at the sweet spot right now with the staffing that we currently have.
How has the waiting list changed over the last few years?
I could probably defer to the assistant principals at the high school about that. I think it's remained fairly consistent.
Yeah, it's been a consistent number of students. I guess how it changed. It's the same group of kids all the time. It's
Okay.
the same type of situations often.
All right, so kind of what I was fishing for is, has there been a big increase because of the last 3 years? That's kind of what I was fishing for. Okay, so well, that's good news, I guess. But yeah, I think, you know, last year I mentioned that I think it's an extremely valuable program. I think that probably we as a board and administration should talk about, you know, with the new school being built and other things moving and shaking, what can we do to bolster the program? Because frankly, if kids need it and we're not providing it, we are failing them. Thank you.
Anyone else? We love your program.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
Thanks very much.
I just have a question for our team more than, this decrease here, that went to Lisa Garneau's team, right? Because a bunch of staff got moved over into her. Does anybody remember where that, oh, never mind. No, that's my mistake. I was like, well, the change, it's just, I misinterpreted that as staff moving over. Never mind.
You're all good. Okay. All right. I'd like to welcome Rich Drummond, who is in charge of athletics. Welcome, Rich.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm here to discuss and present the athletic budget. But before I do, we've had some, and I know it's getting late, but we've had some teams this year have some great success. Our fall was wonderful. It's a great way to kick off the school year. Went into winter. We've had a great winter, and all our teams are competitive. And it's nice to be competitive, but it's not the primary goal. It's very much a journey. But also through that, by having competitive teams, we've had teams recognized for the way that they've carried themselves, or the way the coaches have carried themselves, and even true sometimes the way our fans behave. It's a good thing. Every now and then everybody needs a little bit of a redirection, but for the most part, athletics, the way kids and everybody have, you know, approached it and being positive, it's been a nice feeling. So it's been a great year, and we should have a very successful spring. There are two kids that I'd like to just give a shout out to. One is a wrestler. His name's Aiden Cafone. He's a sophomore. If you remember, he was a state champion last year in the 113 weight division. He won states again this year in the 120 weight division. And just a great kid, and you wouldn't even, you'd look at him, he's very unassuming, but he's a competitor, and he's a great kid, and he's a good student. Another student athlete that won a state championship this winter is Talia Pelletier in the triple jump. So Talia is she's on the brink of doing big things in track and field. And another, yes, the production is there as far as what kids do in results, but also there's a direct connection on how they carry themselves, and they're good students to top that off. But more so into my athletic budget, it's up 12.29%, and the bulk of that is on the HR side. But I'd like to draw your attention to a few items in the budget where my cost center, where I have some increases. And I'll try not to move too fast from page to page so you can follow, but just some things I want to point out. A lot of things in my budget, much like other cost centers, might be areas that we have no control over. And the first thing that I'd just like to reference is on page 164 of 250. If you'd notice at the bottom of the page, our officials line at the high school is up $6,000. That's a significant increase for officials, but that is something that's negotiated pretty much every year, what officials get paid. And it's negotiated, it's not through the school, it's negotiated through the Maine Principals Association. So a lot of that, when negotiations are arrived at and the committees and all the work is arrived and finalized, and they come to, you know, an official gets paid X, that's put at the schools, and the schools really have no say in that. If you remember the news this fall, and even every now and then you hear it a little bit, there is a drastic shortage of officials in all sports. People just don't want to do it anymore. Some of it is because of the abuse that they take. Some of it is for other reasons here in the state of Maine. A lot of our officials are aging out, so we need to tap into the younger group. But in any event, that account line is up $6,000, and that represents increases in negotiated fees with officials. Another line that I'd like to draw your attention to, or another item, you can find it on page 163 of 250. And what that is middle school and high school dues and fees is up almost $1,700. And that is associated to and relates to the cost that we encumber for being a part of league associations. So within our league at the high school level and even at the middle school level, a big reason why you are part of leagues is to obtain schedules and to obtain schools that you compete against and things of that nature, but also you have to pay to be part of those leagues. And you have to pay by not so many by how many kids, participants you have, but you have to pay by the sports that you offer. So that area in my budget for league dues and fees is up. High school rental, you can notice on page 165 of 250. It's the 300 account. That account is up $1,500, and that's due to rental fees, anticipated rental fees increases that comes out of that line. And we use that line we rent St. Joe's College at times for artificial turf to get our teams out there to practice when it's bad weather. That will also relate to increases in swim costs at the high school level, and it's just something that everything's a little bit more to be able to run an athletic program for the kids. Another line that I want to draw your attention to is if you go to page 162 of 250. You'll notice that our uniform line is up. It's $7,000 total. It's $1,000 at each middle school, and it's $5,000 at the high school. So people might think, you know, geez, that's a lot of money, and it is. It certainly is. But if the high school budget is, say, $20,000 total for next year, that might just outfit 3 teams for the year, or 4 teams, possibly, depending on what we do and what we get. Prices, again, I sound like a broken record, and I apologize for that, but prices have gone up across the board. And cloth, as far as making our kids have adequate uniforms, that's something that, you know, it's reflected in the budget. It would be great to have a lot of cushion in that line, because what I have to do is I create a rotating schedule of when uniforms come up. I applaud some coaches. We just got almost 7 years out of our girls' soccer uniforms, so they're definitely due. But that's just an indication of that is great wear if you get 7 years out of a uniform. And you also get the quality as far as what you get. You get what you pay for. You could easily get a stock item they pull right off the counter, they put numbers on it, boom, and they send it out. chances are that's not going to last too long in the world of athletics. So a lot of our varsity teams are outfitted in custom uniforms, and this just provides durability. And lastly, as far as account lines, another item on page 165 of 250 is athletic supplies at the high school level is up $2,000. And that's to purchase supplies for various sports. I was going to save this a little bit for the end, but there's not a lot of fluff in the athletic budget. It's I don't want to say it's, you know, bare bones, but there's just not a lot of fluff. We provide many things for the kids, and the board has been very supportive over the years towards the athletic budget. But a lot of what we do provides just the bare necessities as far as game balls or as far as practice balls. You know, many teams fundraise to get items over and beyond to get equipment for their programs. That's not reflected in this budget. The athletic boosters, and Michelle Jordan's here tonight, where at least she was. Hi, Michelle. She is very active in our boosters club, but the athletic boosters provide another crutch for us to lean on to provide for kids. So again, there's not a lot of fluff in here, but I did up the supply line $2,000. Just a few coaching stipends that I want to reference for next year. We have over 50 boys lacrosse players playing this spring, which is great. That tradition has carried on for the last 2 or 3 years. Girls lacrosse right now, those numbers are in the 40s, so we've anticipated, and I've put into the budget, a stipend to have first team boys and girls lacrosse. Our tennis numbers are starting to also go through the roof, which is a great thing, but those folks, those tennis coaches need support, and they're just, it's one coach per gender. So I've put into the budget to have assistant tennis coaches into the budget for next year. And one program that I'm really looking forward to, we're starting it this year through a grant that we've received through Special Olympics, but Unified Bocce. I've put into the budget for $1,200 for stipends for Unified Bocce next year, so the spring of 2024. But in closing, those are some line items of some big changes in the athletic budget, and it's up 12%. The board's always been very supportive of supporting the extracurricular activities for the kids, not just athletics, but everything. And just again, it's not bare bones, but it keeps us safe. It allows the kids to compete, represent their school and their communities. And I'd just like to thank, you know, publicly the boosters for what they do, and also the programs themselves. I know that they go around and knock on your doors and they fundraise and everything, and probably come after Christmas, everybody gets real annoyed with it. I get it, but I'd like to thank those programs. So I can entertain any and all questions, and hopefully I have the answers. If not, I'll definitely circle back with you.
I just have a comment about Unified Bocce. This morning, I attended a breakfast that Vanessa Michu coordinates, and at my table was a student who had participated in the basketball game that I recently attended, and she was just awesome, and she was dancing in the middle at halftime, and it was just so fabulous. And she eloquently described how meaningful unified basketball was for her, and she mentioned bocce, and I tell you, I think she's pretty excited about it. So I'm glad that we're offering additional sports for these students. So thank you for your support.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Is this our first or second year with the esports team?
It is our second.
How many kids on that team?
This past fall, there were 10.
Okay, and do they go to competition, or?
Yeah.
Who do they compete against?
Many schools, I shouldn't say many, but quite a few in our area have it. They probably, in southern Maine, there's probably 15 to 20 schools that offer it. We were, and again, it's not about winning, but we were one win away from making it to the state championship in year 2. So Seth Fournier is our coach. He's not here tonight, but he's usually here, and he's done a great job, assisted by Michelle Lane. And it's just tapped into a totally different kid, and those kids they've flourished. They've done a great job with it.
Rich, are there any sports that students request that we are not participating in yet?
Sports on the horizon. I haven't had formal conversations with any kids, but this will, at some point, we really need to look at, right now we don't offer lacrosse at the middle school level. That is still a club organization through town. I think at some point we need to look at sponsoring that. I think a nice time probably to do that would be when the new middle school opens and bring that in. We don't offer middle school cheering at Wyndham Middle School or at Jordan Small. Middle school football is not run through the school, and the only reason I reference these is because a lot of other schools in our area, their schools support it, and they oversee it, and they administer it. So those are just some things, Kate, that somewhat I have a part here in my binder, and I call it items on the horizon. So those are some things that at some point probably should have some conversations about.
Well, we know student engagement and extracurriculars are important and keep students engaged with their grades just because of the policy.
Yeah, it is. One thing recently that I did for Mr. Karen, he had the Portland Press that was reaching out to him, wondering about our participation in athletics post-COVID and everything. And so I got that information from Mr. Karen last week, and we haven't seen a big dip post-COVID, and our numbers have stayed strong. We haven't done them yet for this year, but I would say we're probably going to fall, and we're probably going to be around 52% of the school participating in athletics. So
is that typical for a school our size?
I've seen it very low. Some schools that we all know very well that are in our conference are in the mid-30s, low 30s. I think that's a very good number to be proud of as far as participation rates. We have right now through signups this spring at the high school, almost 260 athletes signed up for spring athletics in some sort, some manner. So.
I just have a final question about the athletic facilities coordinator, and there's an increase in that time. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's a reallocation of staff. So in previous years, 0.5 was put in Bill Hansen's budget, and 0.5 was put into the athletic budget. So that solely shifted over to athletics for this year.
So it's just one person, just a shift?
Yep, it's a reallocation.
Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone?
Just out of curiosity, I think what you said about the nonprofit, the Wyndham Boosters supporting athletics in both towns is our teams are obviously fed from both of those areas. Do you have a sense of how much they're fundraising? And how much they're supporting the program? I think that's an important number if we have it off the top of our head, because, you know, I think some people might say, Shar pointed out earlier, this is, you know, a year where we're going to have a lot of questions about a lot of things, food, supplies. You talked about uniforms, and I think it is important to just highlight the other nonprofits and other things that feed into athletics. I happen to agree personally that athletics are integral to student success for some students, similarly as some of the arts programs are. Do you have a sense of what that number is?
It's large. They do an enormous amount of work, but I can definitely, I wouldn't dare say right now, Jody, but I can get that for you easily by tomorrow and pass it along. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Anyone else for Rich? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yes.
Next up, Michelle Braun, welcome. Jordan Small Middle School.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the work you do. I truly do feel supported, and I'm happy to be a part of this community. I also want to give a shout out to the Windham High School girls hockey team. I'm a hockey mom. I don't know if any of you guys are aware, there are a couple of players and they won state championship as a co-op with the Chevrolet team, so I was watching that all season, so that's awesome. But I wanted to start on a little bit of a different note. I wanted to share an email that I received last Tuesday from a parent, and then another parent tagged on it. I know you guys have heard it or seen it, but I think it's important to show kind of the community that we have at Jordan Small. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I wanted to share pieces of it. The parent wrote, "I wanted to take a moment to share with you how impressed I was to see 5 of your Jordan Small staff attend their recreational basketball championship game last night. I felt that it was important for you to know how much it meant to the girls and boy players to have their teachers take the time after school hours to travel to and attend a recreational game at Windham High School. I also wanted you to know that as a parent, seeing their teachers attend the game reminded me of how fortunate we are to live in such a wonderful school community, that the educators that are willing to go the extra mile to support our students both in and out of the classroom. A true highlight for me was watching as one of the staff members went to leave, all of the students yelling from the bleachers their goodbyes, and many of them heading over to give her hugs, all knowing that in a matter of a few hours, they would all see each other again at school. This is the work that also matters, the relationships, the connections, the care that was shown for our students this evening. On top of that, another parent responded to this. When teachers showed up together last night, you would have thought Taylor Swift walked into the building as the cheers from the girls warming up on the court were so loud, the entire gym stopped to look at what the commotion was. These are the moments that matters, and the teachers who are there last night creating lasting memories for both these boys and girls. So I just think it's important to recognize, like, we do have a great community, and the things that I have in my budget are truly to support and continue the things that are going on in that school, in the school that I lead. I don't want to go through all the pieces of the request, but I think what I want to point out are the things that really emerged to the surface this year, was the start and continuation and learning and professional development around restorative practices, and then also the initial development and creation of professional learning communities. Those are important things that support our kids, both academically but also, emotionally as well. And moving forward, next year I'm hoping the continued training with restorative practices, the creation of a master schedule to support both SEL and restorative practices, as well as the instructional framework. And then also the continued work with Windham Middle School to align our curriculum and instructional practices. That's something that we've already started to work on. I am asking, the one thing that I think is important is the addition of a 6th grade teacher to ensure the average class size of around 19 students at Jordan Small Middle School. The current 5th grade has 3 teachers, and then the incoming 5th grader have similar numbers, so that would kind of, dictate the necessity for a 3rd teacher on the 6th grade, or in the 6th grade. Other than that, I really have no other significant costs. Any questions?
Anyone? You're growing.
Nailed it.
No, here, I'm looking at your student totals.
Yeah, we are.
And 173 and projected 197, so the population is growing.
It is growing.
Which obviously justifies the additional teacher.
Yes. Okay.
I have no questions. If anyone else? Very straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
And sharing of those letters. That was important. Thank you. Last but not least, Peter Hill.
Thanks, everybody.
I've been doing a lot of helping kids write persuasive essays these days, as is a key middle school skill. And Mr. Hill's guide to writing persuasive essays is to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So here we go. What am I going to tell you? Things are going great at Wyndham Middle School, and we don't have any huge asks in this year's budget. All right, so now I'm going to tell you. Why are things going great? We've got 4 really clear school goals that we want almost to be mindsets for kids. We want kids leaving in 8th grade feeling like they've embodied these 4 goals. The first one says, I'm part of this community. The second one says, I can succeed. Third, we want kids to know that their ability and confidence grow with their effort, or the harder I work, the better I get. And then lastly, we want kids to be able to say this work has value to me. So we've made progress on all these goals, and our budget really supports each of these goals. When we think about that first one, being part of the academic community, this has been a huge part of this year, and I think a huge part for everybody's school as we come back from COVID. We've spent the year designing and implementing and experimenting with a new advisory system, and we're ready to kind of green light that for next year. And that's really been focused around 2 goals of having kids learn how to play with each other, and then learning the soft skills of interpersonal communication, active listening, empathy, kind language, things like that. Another goal, the harder I work, the better I get. We've got a robust MTSS program where we're trying to meet every kid where they're at and push them towards growth. And this includes a 3-tiered morning intervention system. We've had all students participate in school-wide PBIS lessons focused on improving collective behavior in common areas across the school. And then lastly, our Altitude program, which is our alternative education program, has really helped to engage students in meaningful active learning experiences. And if you look closely at the budget, that's the one place we're asking for a little boost in resources. The last goal I want to talk quickly about, I think, has the most momentum and interest on the staff, and it's kind of allowing both kids and staff to rise to their highest levels, and that's that goal of this work has value to me. So this year we launched a PD cycle of practicing, designing, and implementing classroom projects focused on the concept of high-quality work. And when we say high-quality work, we mean work that's complex and well-crafted and authentic. This is really our first step in the journey to having a really solid project-based way of approaching curriculum. I just want to share some really cool examples that are on the horizon for the spring. A 7th grade team is in year 4 of a really big project called Taking Back Maine's Future, where students look at ways to solve in Maine's opioid crisis. A new one that's popped up that's really cool to me, a former science teacher, is an 8th grade team is looking at the intersection of history, language arts, and science based through Victorian era inventions and how those were marketed to people in the Victorian era. Kids are designing their own inventions and then learning kind of persuasively how to market them. That's in partnership with Victoria Mansion in Portland. And then, on a real small scale, a great example of how you can do this, we've got a 6th grade math and science teacher pairing up to look at how groundwater flows around our campus and ways they can remediate erosion. So they're looking at unit prices for mulches and gravels and where they would put them and calculating the volume. So really synthesizing math and science together. So just to wrap it up, tell them what you told them. Everything is kind of stable. Things are going great. Enrollment's stable. Staffing's going to stay the same. No major increases to any cost centers. The one thing we're asking for is around $8,000 through different lines to support our Altitude program, which is the alternative education program. That's really designed for consumables, transportation, and then entry fees into different experiences outside of school. That money had been funded through ESSER, and now we're just shifting it into our lines in our budget.
You told it. Anybody have any questions? I'm just curious about your Altitudes program, and as I asked Craig about his capacity, what your capacity is for that program, because it's new and it sounds exciting.
And we're growing in any year 1, right? There's a lot of reflecting, a lot of checking in. Right now, we have, it fluctuates a little because as students transition out, we interview and recruit new students. At the 7th grade level, we have 14 students and 3 staff. And then at the 8th grade level, 6 or 7. I don't know right off the top of my head where we're at exactly on that. So that's kind of the sweet spot now, as that team of teachers learns how to work and collaborate with each other and kind of learn how to use the resources and the spaces to do activities with all the kids.
So they cycle in and out, they don't necessarily...
So students are, we look at attendance concerns, disengagement from the community, lack of kind of family history and success in school. Those are kind of our criteria for thinking about kids. It's not a place for work completion. It's a place to target really kids that are disengaged from the academic community. So sometimes students will say, we've always pictured it as almost an on-ramp to the mainstream, if that makes sense. Because we don't want to set up a situation where kids are in alternative education from 6th grade up through Katahdin. Some students, that might be what they need to flourish. Other kids, not so much. So we do take it on a kid-by-kid basis. Like I said, we have an interview process to say, hey, here's what we have to offer. Does this sound good? It's always in partnership with the altitude teachers, the mainstream teachers, and the families. And students aren't in there all day. They're doing their math and social studies in an integrated way in altitude, and they're going out to the mainstream for language arts and math.
Do you have a wait list?
We do not have a wait list, but we have like a short list knowing that, so yes, we do have a wait list. When somebody transitions out, we have 2 or 3 queued up that we want to work with to get in. Yeah.
Sounds like a great program, thank you. Anybody have a question for Mr. Hill?
I just have a comment, nothing related to the budget, but I wanted to take the opportunity to just highlight and say thank you to yourself, Mr. Patton, of course, Michelle Brennan, everyone that touches this new middle school project. I'm not sure if it's really well known, but one of the things that was a little alarming to me was that the teachers that are in the place that they're in at the time that they're in during a school that's being built take on the responsibility of almost like a second job a lot of weeks and months. And there is a school build committee that's formed, obviously, and they work through things thoughtfully. But we're quite honestly informed of the work that you're doing and administration from the top down around building a new school. It started 2 years ago, is my understanding. I've participated only for 18 months or so, but I just want to say thanks for that. That work is all extra, and thanks for doing that. And I have great hopes for what we'll see next year in collaboration in programming. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I think you're done. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Well, we've heard from all of these cost centers, and now is time for public comments if anyone would like to make a comment.
Can I pick it up? I didn't want to sit down. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not sitting in your seats, guys. First off, I have a question because I don't have your book, but for athletics, and you guys have the book. I'm really curious about football helmets. I know in the past there's been different times, and I know there's always a lot going on with football helmets because of safety for the kids, and there's enhancements done to them periodically, so I don't know if... Well, I'm supposed to face that way. Yeah, go.
I'll sit down. My hip's sore. So with football helmets, that is an item that the football team raises funds for and they purchase themselves as a program. The school doesn't provide helmets. But to Marge's point, we send them out at the end of every year for what's called reconditioning, and you'll notice that in the athletic budget. And what happens with that, the vendor will go through the helmet and they'll change the bladder, or they'll change snaps. The bladder is to help prevent concussions. It's just serves almost a little bit as a pillow in the helmet. All these items, these helmets are looked at and they're inspected, and they're stamped for approval and put back into the cycle of football helmets, and we reissue them every year. There does come a point where they phase out. It could be after 3 years, 4 years. We have some helmets, once they get up around 6 or 7 years, the vendor usually does not recondition those any longer. I would say, and Phil is right behind me and works closely with our football program, I would say, having worked at 2 other big schools as the athletic director, I feel very confident and safe and proud that I think our kids, football kids, are in the safest equipment that they could be in. So, and those do not come cheap, those helmets. So it's something that I couldn't afford in the athletic budget. And they do fundraise for that, but we have some things in place to hopefully keep the longevity of them, but also keep the kids safe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The main reason I brought that up is because there's a lot of football fans, and I know a lot of parents get concerned about putting their kids into football when you see all that's going on in pro football and everybody's concerned about concussions and et cetera. So that was more for clarification for any parents out there concerned about their kids playing football. Now the other item I had, and usually I've done it every year from up there, is just a reminder that there are a lot of folks in town who are on a single budget. There's a lot of senior citizens, and this is I'm talking about the bottom line of the budget. I totally support the schools, always have, always will. But it's just a reminder, and I'm not sure where we are. We're still at the, I think it was 4-point-something%. But I know that that budget goes through a lot of versions, a lot of iterations. I think we were up to version 7 last year. Just a reminder that there's, I don't want the school to be the reason that we price people out of living in the towns of Wyndham and Raymond. Just a reminder. Thank you.
I think we get a budget book, and it's gone through many iterations behind the scenes with our administrators and the superintendent and assistant superintendent, and what is presented to us at 5.9, I believe is what we're at right now, will likely not be the percentage when we end. And right now we're just in the process of hearing from the cost centers, and then we will have time to deliberate and consider what is high priority for the district. I don't think it's going to end there, but I don't have a crystal ball. But we are very cognizant of costs and seniors and what the community can bear. So we are aware. Thank you. Anybody else? Yep.
My name is Jen Potter. I'm a Wyndham resident. I'm a teacher in the district, but tonight I'm speaking as a mom. When Mr. Karen spoke about Quiz Bowl stipends for next year, I was shocked that the wonderful teachers who are traveling out of state all day on Saturday, doing quiz show nights with the kids, taking them to PBS to record their competitions. I highly support them having a stipend to do that, and I'm really surprised that they don't already have one. So kudos for them for starting this, because it's really important to a lot of kids, and it's been fantastic to watch. So I highly support them having a stipend for next year. So.
Just demonstrates the commitment that our staff has towards our students, that they would do that, and it's pretty impressive. So thanks for mentioning that. Any other movement to speak? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to go to the report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes of the March 8th, 2023 meeting.
Second. Any public comment? Board discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Wow, here we are. I have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a good evening.